It's time for Almost in Agreement, guys. We're changing the programming schedule a little bit, so this is going to be our last Sunday release show, or at least for the time being. We're going to go to Tuesday recordings and probably release on Wednesday midday, something like that. I'm still working out the details of the editing. Not editing, I don't edit shows, but at least the, clean up, make sure the show sounds good before I release it. I do that much, and day job and bullshit. So anyway, we'll be doing another show. Pretty quick turnaround on the next show, and then I've got at least one interview scheduled next week, so we'll deal that from there. Almost in Agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to our website, almostinagreement.com. While you are there, check out my voter guide 22. I've got it updated to include all the state races that we'll be voting on locally. So anyway, that stuff's going on there. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, favorite podcast provider, like, share, friend, follow, all those kind of cool things. Had a hell of a fucking week this week. I don't know how much I want to really go down that rabbit hole, but I'm sure we'll touch on it a little bit. So anyway, almost here, everybody. Thanks for listening. We're going to do a show starting right about meow. Boom, did it.
Done. That's a wrap.
That is a rap. It's my gangster rap, my intro gangster rap. Mm-hmm. Not very gangster rap. So anyway, what's new, buddy? What's happening?
Oh, nothing new in my sphere of influence.
Oh, yeah? Give me the description of your sphere of influence.
It is very minute.
Whatever. It's a special sphere. And it influences. But, we're going to try to start doing Tuesday nights, because hopefully we can get more AC and Maxes in for those, to make it a more full show. It'll still be, at best, AC still every other week, because that's normally his schedule rotates week to week.
Is Wednesday a good drop day?
I don't know.
You could still leave it a Sunday drop.
Yeah, but there's so much, we're not super topical.
Right, yeah, I guess.
But we are semi-topical. I would hate to do, to record Tuesday night and something significant happen Wednesday and not release till Sunday. Right. I don't, something happens first thing Wednesday morning and we release Wednesday afternoon. There's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
But Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that's a lot of time.
Not that we need
a lot of stuff to go on.
Breaking news to people.
Right. Not that, you're right. Not that, and that's not necessarily what we're trying to do either, but, I don't know. I feel like it's at least worth the effort to try to stay, I've gone back and listened to some old episodes just out of curiosity, some for engineering sake, see how it sounds compared to now, see if I'm getting better at the technical side of things, but also just because I remember one of the bets I went back.
What were we thinking a year ago about this?
I went back and was trying to find one of the bets that we had, and I was trying to figure out what the specifics of the bet were so that we could settle correctly. It sounded like shit compared to now. But and to be fair, I've had at least two fairly significant items that we've talked about that I've changed my opinion on. The law director thing was one of them. I can't remember what the other one was. We were talking about it not that long ago. But the voting for the law director thing is one of the ones that we talked a lot about, and I have changed my stance on it now that I understand it better.
You mentioned you kind of started changing your thinking of the Electoral College. I think you said you kind of changed your thoughts on it a little bit. Yeah,
but I don't know if that was part of the show so much as just the kind of thought process. It's the only national vote. It's the only thing that we vote on as a country.
Yeah.
There's no other office that the entire nation votes for.
Sure.
And so, I don't know.
American Idol.
Right, the office of American Idol.
Sorry.
Man.
I hate to bring up that shit show.
But, so I don't know. That I have kind of softened my view on that one. I don't know. I just think the process, I think there's a lot wrong with the electoral process on all levels. I don't think that's a new thing for me. But, I used to hold on to that Electoral College thing like it was a biblical importance, which I don't think it is. You're right. I have kind of shifted off of that one.
Well, that was just public opinion. We just assumed that was the best way to do it, that it seemed more equal in the way it was portrayed.
Yeah.
It goes off of, population. If a certain state has a certain population, you get this many electoral votes.
It's Friday.
Oops, sorry. Mary Jacobs butting in on our show.
Hey.
I was going to, it was a thought I had. I was going to pitch it at you here in a minute. I wasn't going to try to do it yet.
Back up off.
I didn't mean to, this is our show, Mary Jacobs.
This is our time.
Okay. I was like one of the shows that I listen to. One of the things he does on the show a lot is he'll take a clip, whether it's a news clip or a public, like
Jacobs.
No, but it's like Jen Psaki, like Jen Psaki's at a press conference and doing a statement or whatever. He'll take that statement and kind of do his take on what the person's saying and stuff like that. And so I was like, hey, it might be fun to try. Jacobs does his Friday. Every Friday he does his little 2-3 minute video about how awesome he is this week as mayor.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he's done it for the entirety of his term. And I watch him every once in a while. It's a little happy.
Kind of cool. I mean, people have a...
it's like kind of his version of the fireside chat, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I mean, people have an avenue to at least see what at least he's saying that he's done all week.
To hear his opinion of himself.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, because I'm curious, and especially now that I've gotten into the kind of the flow with the Compass guys and their show, and the way we break stuff down into the sections of that show. One of the sections of that show is coming up next week's stuff. And stuff that, in their opinion, is kind of their top stories. The bulk of have you listened to the show yet? The Compass show?
Got about half, I think, of the first one. First or second one.
Right, okay. I'm anyway.
Not a full episode yet.
Okay, well, it's if you're still on the first one, then it's changed a little bit. But there's 4 segments. There's the first segment, which was the week that just did. So we go over the top stories of the week that just happened, and then they do an interview with a news person, and whether it may be related to the stuff that's happened this week, or it may just be somebody that's interesting. Just depends on scheduling more than anything. But for the most part, it's been like a bunch of city budget conversation, and then we had Seema Singh as the interview that week. And so we do what happened last week, interview section, and we've added a question section for subscribers. So if you're a Compass subscriber, you get the Compass Colloquy, which I believe is the correct pronunciation. But you can hear Jesse say it like 15 times on the show, so you can correct it there. Anyway, and then they do the what's coming up next week. And so now that I've gotten kind of used to the format, and it's given me a little bit of a cheat on what's happened this week, because it's Friday afternoon when we record together, and so it's like, hey, what all happened this week? I'm curious to see what Mary Jacobs' version of it. Hey, this is what all happened this week against what their version of what's important. And obviously some of it lines up differently because, one, Scott covers the city stuff. When we talk about city stuff, Mary Jacobs isn't going to talk about city stuff.
Just count, yeah.
But so it's, anyway, that was the thought process. I was going to kind of play that against what Scott and Jesse thought were the best, the most important stories of the week. I mean, the biggest one probably this week in local news was the big 180-something unit housing development going in South Knoxville.
Not aware of it.
I mean, it's one of those essentially
180 units. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's a little McMansion neighborhood. It'll be a bunch of 2,000 square foot whatever's packed in on a 1/10 of an acre lot or whatever. And so apparently, it's a pretty sizable piece of land total, but only about half of it is really easily buildable.
Like apartments, condos, or
no houses.
Houses,
yeah, okay. Standalone houses. It's one of those neighborhoods that everybody complains about. And so the use and review was that they were basically like a third of the land they're going to barely even touch. That's the total property, but they were at, I think, technically in current zoning it was allowed to have like 250 on the totality of the land, but since they were squeezing it into a smaller portion because it's the easier portion to build on, they had to ask for clearance basically. So the county backed it up to like 186, and they can still build on the hilly part of the land, and they have room to do it. It's just most people and other developers and the planning commission and people that are used to this kind of thing doubt they're going to do a lot of work on the hilly part. They're going to just pack in this flat part. And so anyway, there's a bunch of the local South Knoxville people were in there protesting and speaking their piece against why they don't think they should allow this adjustment to zoning. Which is again is one of those interesting ones, is that by definition they're actually coming in under what they are allowed to do. It's the compaction that was the question, as I understand it.
Yeah.
And so the community at large doesn't really have a voice in this. It's already in the books, zoned.
It's already been approved.
Right. It's just that potentially, I suppose, if they wanted to try to flatten out the hilly areas and build a bunch more on there, they could almost double the total units. But like I said, from planners and developers and other people that are used to this kind of thing, that's way too costly. Most people aren't going to do it. And so it's not, they're actually less total houses in the acreage that the zoning already allows for. So I guess that's kind of a win, I guess, for the locals. But, it goes back to that same housing question we've had 1,000 times. I don't know how they're not getting any cheaper. They're not going to get any cheaper. So what are we supposed to do? They're not just going to magically get cheaper.
I think there are ways to make it cheaper.
How so?
So there's got to be some kind of cheaper recycled materials. I mean, you look at building materials, building costs. You can build things more economically, and not necessarily have it be just cheap, low quality everything.
I would think that they're already playing that game, though. Like, I would think that if you're a developer that's doing a multi-million
Depends
dollar,
on what you're trying to sell it for. I mean, if you're trying to get a decent price out of it, you're not putting, basic lighting fixtures in there.
I mean, finishing stuff, sure. Finishing stuff's a separate animal, but I think that's one of those. And I think that's one of the things that as I understand it, is one of the issues for developers. Is at the end of the day, the piece of land costs the same. The cost to build a house per however many houses per acre is about the same, except for finishing stuff. I mean, but not it's not a significant jump. So, like, on the basic economics of it, you're going to build a house and you're selling for $500,000. It costs you, I don't know what, we'll say $300,000 to build it.
Uh-huh.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm throwing numbers. Right. I don't know the specifics. Right. But it costs you $300,000 to sell a $500,000 house. It costs you $275,000 to sell a $350,000 house. Which one are you going to do? Spend an extra $25 to make an extra $100,000+?
I mean, if you can crank out that lower price one faster in the long run,
but I think
should make you more.
I would think that I agree with the premise if you can do that, but I would think that they know they can't do that, and that's why they don't try. Because again, if it's bottom line, if this is a greed bottom line argument, and that's the problem with these people is they're greedy, then that's what they're going to build. They're going to build as many cheap little whatevers that they can sell and make the most profit off of at the end of the day. There's some factor in there that makes this a better move for them financially to do it the way they're doing it. And I can't imagine it's anything else, but at the end of the day, the cost to build from zero is about the same whether it's a $300,000 house or a $500,000 house. Relatively, it's relatively cheaper to build a $500,000 house than a $300,000 house. Relatively.
I mean, there's some different variables to it. I think I was watching I don't know when exactly it originally aired, but there was a PBS Frontline documentary. It was about an hour long or so. It was talking about. I think it was talking more about government subsidized housing and how it's gone through the years.
Right.
How it started back in the 30s and 40s, kind of pre-World War II, and then after that, the government was funding of building more things outside of the city, which I think may have been the whole beginning of the Great White Flight, as some people call it.
Right.
Of a lot of people moving out of the cities and into the suburbs. That was one crazy thing. It was 1 in 4 people that are eligible for, Section 8 vouchers are actually able to get Section 8 vouchers. And they followed a few people, and I think it was one woman that waited 6 years before she was actually able to get her voucher.
And what was the holdup?
I think just that many people. I guess there's just so few available. And they showed footage, and I think I remember seeing some before.
Is what's
of the actual housing voucher.
Okay.
Because I don't know a whole lot about it, but I think the voucher essentially covers, I guess, when you apply for one, you give them your monthly income or whatever. And it's supposed to just pretty much make up the difference between what your income can cover.
Right.
So I don't think it's, a flat, $500 that everyone gets. I think it is kind of based on your own economics.
But the number of vouchers is what's not there, or the number of available housing that will take the vouchers?
Both, yeah.
Okay, that's confusing.
I mean, there's a lack of housing. Then there's a lack of.
Do they not get? They won't approve a voucher until you have a place to put it, and that's part of why they're not giving.
I think you can have that voucher, but then once you have that voucher,
you have to find a place that'll take it.
Right. A lot of places, one was calling a bunch of people hey, do you accept Section 8 housing? And I remember seeing it in the newspaper when they used to have rentals in there, where it was Section 8 housing or vouchers approved or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's only certain people that will take that voucher.
Right, but again, you're not going to build that. Maybe you buy it as an investor,
Right.
Maybe you
and some do that, and some were kind of skimming off because I guess there's a whole big kind of
saying,
economical of like the government gives it to the banks give it to the lenders then invest into the developers. It was this whole game, and of course they pointed out people that were taking advantage of that, like skimming off like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It, even if it's not skimming, everybody's taking a cut for for doing the part of the process.
Right.
Even if it's not actual scamminess, it's 3% is ours, and
one of the things was simply, I guess whenever a construction company applies, to have something built, they get approved, and and I think it was through like federal grants or whatever, and like, hey, we'll give you $3 million to build this, but they already knew that it's only going to cost them $2 million, and they basically just pocket that extra $1 million. But just kind of overflating business expenses. I'm like, we thought I was going to get this,
But we say like that to be for the conversation's sake and what we've been over the last year or whatever with the baseball or the multi-use stadium project.
Right.
Total price is like 80 mil city county together, putting in like 64 mil of this thing.
Right. As you were pointing out, all those people that live close to that stadium now are probably going to get priced out.
They're going to get that whole section of Magnolia east of downtown. East part of Old City, all that stuff is going to get. I mean, that is going to be. There's going to be a lot of people pushed out of their houses, which is going to be interesting. I'm curious how it plays out, honestly, because there's a weird play in there because there's 2 project housings there, right nearby, and they're not going to get pushed out. I mean, the city or the county or the state or somebody owns that anyway, so I don't know how that's all going to exactly play out because you're going to get this weird little juxtaposition of really high end. I'm right next to this downtown baseball project, blah, blah, blah thing, $500,000 condo. And then on the other side, so one side of the street is the baseball process or the baseball project. Then the other side of so in the building that you're in, and then the other side of the street is an actual housing project.
Yeah.
And how that's going to play out with the residency and how those interminglings are going to go down. Curious. I mean, I don't think it's going to be that. I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. I think it's the people that are own homes down there or rent homes down there are the ones that are going to they're going to pay the price for this.
Yeah.
But again, the question being, it's like, again, with my understanding of how the financing goes, this is really a moot discussion, but there's other things that the city and county will put money into that would maybe be a better apples to apples, because the baseball project's not. It's just not the way they're financing it. It's not like the city and the county couldn't get together and get the loans and do the things they're going to do to build a 100-unit apartment complex for affordable housing. It's just not the way the funding structure works. Couldn't come out the same. But for the sake of conversation, would that be a better long-term investment in a community than a stadium entertainment complex?
In my opinion, yes.
I don't know. I get it. I can play it both ways, I guess.
I mean, do you want a place to live or a place to go watch a baseball game? I'm going to take a place to live, but maybe I'm crazy.
Yeah, but again, the problem is if it's a place to live, and as callous as this is going to sound or whatever, but if it's a place to live, it's not going to be contributing significantly to the tax rolls.
How not?
Well, if it's project housing, then the city
they don't pay taxes at all.
The city, they don't pay property tax. If the city owns the land, it doesn't pay property tax.
Does the city directly own it, or is there?
I don't know. I think there's different versions of different project housings. There might be federal ones, but I would wager if they are state-owned, air quotes state-owned, city, county.
I'm assuming they're still privately owned.
I don't know. I don't know, but I'm sure that there has to be some tax break in place. I would be hard pressed.
I don't think there's any residential property directly owned by the city itself, where city of Knoxville is on.
Okay, I don't disagree with you, but if it is specifically designed and subsidized housing, I would bet that part of the subsidy is taxed.
No, I'm sure the owner probably gets subsidized for providing that subsidized housing.
Okay, well then they're not.
But you still have those people living there paying sales tax, buying groceries,
I'm not talking
buying
about
everything
sales
else
tax.
around.
I'm not talking about sales.
Does that not go back into the coffer?
Functionally, not really. Not in a real way. Honestly, 70-something%.
Yes, I know in that crazy roundabout way of us taxes going back to the state and the state giving it back to us.
Not even that. Is that the local portion of the city taxes and sales tax 70-something% of that going to schools, which is not a bad thing. I'm not trying to go down that rabbit hole. But as far as for the services that the cities are trying to pay for, and that
schools aren't a service
at 100 units and trash pickup and policing and fire service and all the other things that the city provides as part of their service.
Yeah.
90% of the total city budget is from property tax. They only, like, for all intents and purposes, the city only runs off of property tax, financially speaking, because so much of their sales tax goes to the schools, which is a service that is important to county residents, because all county residents pay that. Anywhere in the county, anywhere in Knox County, 72% of your sales tax goes to Knox County schools. Anywhere in the county. The city and the county both have agreed to that on separate terms, and they're both charter amendment thingies or whatever. They're on it's a voted on item. It cannot change unless it's on a ballot.
Why not just say that the money goes back to the county? How the county has decided how they want to split it up, that's fine. But the money is still going back to the county, and money is going back to the city. How they decide they want to split it up and dispense it 70% to the schools, great. But those taxes are still going back to the city and to the county.
Right. Those sales taxes are, yes.
Right.
Okay.
So in a 100-unit apartment, let's say 2.5 people live there.
Okay, and we're also assuming this is semi-project. Is this a derogatory term? I don't mean to be using derogatory term. I just call it project housing because that's what I know.
I'm talking about an apartment complex.
Okay.
I don't know why you're stuck on this subsidized housing.
Well, because
I'm talking about housing in general. You have people, bodies.
Well, because it started with, instead of a stadium, why didn't we build an apartment complex? And when I but why don't, instead of
you
us
automatically assumed it being, let's make it subsidized housing.
Yes, because if it's instead of us building a stadium, it's us building an apartment complex. So it will be the same theoretical funding model going into an apartment complex. That was the example I was starting with. Yes, an actual brand new apartment complex from scratch that some developer comes in and probably gets a TIF and or pilot to put in and doesn't have to pay property tax for a while, which really isn't that big a deal when you break it down. Yes, yes, but right, and 2.5 people per unit and probably $120,000 average income per unit.
Got a weird side thought. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, like, yeah, if it was just a straight apartment complex that wasn't subsidized, significantly subsidized, but like I guess the point I was trying to bring up is the property tax revenue being the important one, and even if it's a dead piece of land and it's TIF'd, it's still going to generate some property tax, where a city-owned land, which there is city-owned land, presents zero property tax. And so even if it's TIF'd, where it's paying what the property tax is at the time this deal is signed for 15 years, it should go significantly up, but they get that's the deal, is they don't raise property tax on you until the end of this period.
Right.
So, but it's still generating property tax. Not as much as it could if it wasn't into the deal, but again, I agree with you. Yes, there would be more sales tax generated, theoretically. What was your side?
Well, that was one of their big... it was a weird hypothetical that I was kind of curious of. After you were kind of talking about that, it was the worst-case scenario with the stadium, with the taxes deferred. If it were to fail before, I guess, it finally kicked in that they were supposed to start paying taxes, are they still responsible?
Well, no. Again, there will be no property tax on the stadium.
And then what taxes are they getting suspended for whatever period of time?
The stadium is not. As the periphery of the deal with the $140 million development going around the stadium, those will be deferred.
No.
And so here's the deal. Like here's the thing about that I'm still trying to wrap my head around.
That makes even less sense to me now. I can understand the stadium. That's expensive to build, whatever. It's going to take you time before you start having revenue. Why businesses around it should taxes be deferred?
Why should they?
Yes.
Because we want them to build the building. Because look,
they wouldn't build it otherwise. They need to be incentivized to build a business district around a stadium that they know is most likely profitable, possibly.
Well, but I mean, okay. So for the specifics of this example, the deal it is one total package. It's not two separate deals going on simultaneously. It's one package. Build me my stadium, and I'll put this $140 million project in. That was the deal. It's a little bit more complex. Build me my stadium. I'll bring my team and $140 million of development around it.
It's almost getting like worse the more I hear about it.
But for this, yeah, I get. I don't know, because from the city county perspective,
Yeah.
that land is making next to nothing in property tax right now. So who cares if it continues to make next to nothing in property tax, but has an explosion in like you're doing? This is supporting
that it would have stayed vacant for just years and years and years, and nobody's ever going to do anything with it, even though Old City's been blowing up for years.
But I mean, how many developers already knew this was happening way before we started talking about it? Like that was the thing to me.
That knew what was happening. The stadium
that knew this project was coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
Because that was the thing that my complaint when it all of a sudden showed up, it was like, man, this is quick. They're moving fast on this thing.
Well, I'm sure they kept it pretty tight-lipped as best as possible.
But I talked to a number of people about, we've been working on that. Like Stephanie Welch, she was talking about it before she took her seat, which means before when Ruggiero was still city mayor. This was already moving around. A lot of people were talking about this thing.
All right, I'm sure she was in the circle of people that I guess you're already not really courting them, but kind of like, hey, we're thinking about doing this. You know, you've got to kind of figure out.
Well, she was a city council at the time.
Was she?
Right. She was in city council, which is a fun little subset of things. She was in city council for the last 2 years of Ruggiero's reign. Sorry, bad word. But for the last 2 years of Ruggiero, and then when Kincannon got elected, Kincannon pulled Stephanie Welch into her cabinet, for lack of a better word, and then the city had to replace her with Tommy Smith for the duration of that term. But anyway, yeah, I agree with you. There is a hard assumption in the process that nothing happens if this doesn't happen. But as I'm learning a lot, especially from talking to Jesse and Scott, there's the new project that's going to be on Gay and Summit, that parking lot on the corner across from the Treble Clef.
The Treble Clef?
Yeah, there's that little park. It's just that little green space on the corner.
The little dog park there on the corner?
Well, no, on Gay Street, not on State or whatever that one is down there. So there's the visitor center.
Yeah, the Visit Knox Center, yeah.
Right, and then if you go, so across the street where the Hyatt is, that corner is actually a parking lot, right. And so that one just got signed off on a TIF development. And so as Jesse was explaining it on their podcast and to me off air separately, because I asked a bunch of stupid questions, is apparently when these people are trying to finance these things and they're going to the bank for loans, the margins that the banks require for these developers to get out of the development won't make it if they have to pay. Essentially, they won't make it if they have to pay property tax, and so the banks won't give them the loan.
Wait, they won't be able to make what? Sorry, say it again.
The margin that the bank requires them to make to give them the loan. So
because when you go to them with your business model, you're saying this is what my expected profits to be that year.
Right.
And the bank would most likely say your profit margins aren't big enough
for
us to give you this loan.
Here's our plan. We're going to do mixed unit thing. We're going to rent out this part. We're going to have like this one specifically on the corner of Summit and Gay Street is going to have, I think, what they call employee housing. But at least like 1 or 2 floors of it is going to be housing specifically designed for people who work in the coffee shop and shit downstairs. Not that they have to work there, but that people that work in the coffee shop can afford it. So there's 2 layers of affordable housing and then some high-end condos in the last 4 or 5 stories, however tall it's going to be.
Yeah.
And so you write this whole big proposal together. You do some drawings and stuff like that. And, you know, this is Hatcher Hill Properties. This one specifically, they've done a bunch of big projects around the southeast, let alone half of Knoxville's one of their projects or whatever. But they go to the bank and they say, hey, bank, we need $15 million to do this. You know, we've already talked to the city. We've already made sure Codes is on board with all the architect's drawings are good, this, that, and the other. We need $15 million to do this. How much are you going to make off it? Well, you know, we're going to make this much off of the retail part. We're going to make this much off of the one store or the one floor that we have. It's office space. We're going to rent that out for this. Total income per year is going to be X over the 30-year duration of the loan. We're going to bring in this much. We anticipate bringing in this much or whatever, and it's only 7% over what they're asking to build it. Which in, $15, $20 million, 7% is, what, million, a little short of like $500,000 to $1 million, whatever it is. I don't know. Anyway, apparently like 12% is the number the banks want to see. If they don't see 12%, they say no to giving you the money. And so what Hatcher Hill did in this particular one turns around and goes to the city and county.
I think they would at least throw an offer out there, like it may be a worse interest rate, but they would still offer it. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know
but
that
this
level
is
of banking.
as it's been explained to me. This is kind of how it goes. And so Hatcher Hill turns around and goes to city and be like, hey, one of our costs over the term of the loan, one of our major costs is going to be our property tax.
Can they not put up all their other properties as collateral?
If we can put, I wouldn't if you don't have to. That'd be the last thing you would do if you're a developer. But a lot of them build it and sell it, so they don't own the properties anymore anyway.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know the specifics of this one. Just semi-hypothetically, from what I understand of it, is you take that. They turn around, go to the city, and be like, "Hey, we're 2% short of what we need to project for the bank to give it up. City property tax is 2.05% or something like that. Can you help us out?" And essentially, the city says, "We'd really like something built there." Not to mention that particular one is KCDC property. So right now, it is getting $0 in property tax. When it transfers over, it'll get property tax. Hatcher Hill will have to pay what the property tax is for a parking lot downtown, not for a $20 million building for 30 years. But that gets the margin enough that the bank signs off on it, lets Hatcher Hill have access to the money they need to build it, and we have a new high-rise downtown. And what the incentive is for the banks to do that, I don't know. Why the banks care what the company that gets it makes, as long as the bank gets their money back, I don't know. Like, realistically,
yeah, that's what I'm trying to count.
What do I give a shit?
I don't understand that level of financing, but I'm assuming there would be some bank that would do it.
Right.
Whether or not you got to go to like Bank of America, a national bank versus a local bank.
Right. And this is one of those times that I'll sound like you and be like, these guys know what they're doing, so I'm gonna let it go.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know that much about this stuff.
But like this,
spitballing.
Right. As it has been explained to me, that's kind of what's happening. And one of the reasons, like, that tends to be a final hurdle for the financing part of the projects. Is that last little 2 or 3% that that can make a difference in getting a loan or not? And if the city gives it up, the city gives it up. And so, I mean, I don't know. Going back, I get what you're saying, because at the end of the day, my argument is, well, sales tax doesn't mean shit anyway. So if we're not going to get property tax out of it, what's the point?
That was just one weird thought that I'd had. I'm like, wait,
I'd be curious.
If it does happen to fail and all these taxes have been deferred, what happens to those taxes that they did defer? Like you said,
they just don't defer. They just don't get.
They'll have to start paying on it yet, I guess.
Right. They will pay what it is valued at when it comes into place. They don't have to back pay taxes for the time period. It's not deferred in the sense that it's accumulating. It's essentially supposed to be, and this is up to the developer, but it's supposed to be that instead of paying us $1 million or $250,000 a year in property tax, you can spend that $250,000 paying off your loans that you spent to build this thing. And banks look at that and go, okay.
The banks would get their money back a little faster.
Right. The banks see that as a positive because that, what's the old dad joke? There's two things that are guaranteed in life: taxes and death.
Yeah.
So if you're the bank, just make sure they don't die. The taxes are coming to you anyway. And they may have a grab on it. Like, theoretically, the banks may have a grab on it where the deal is that they can, they can garnish whatever the high level version of garnish is up to what the taxes were for the duration of the loan.
I mean, do they have that at like lower levels? If you wanted to have your own, like, build your own standalone business, and like, hey, I need 3 years.
There's been talks about it.
I need 3 years to get my legs under myself.
There's been talks about it.
Can I just not pay you taxes for 3 years?
There is some stuff in the city, but they're usually like they're usually demographically based. They're racist. I mean, it's black or woman or minority group owned businesses. But there are some of those, like they call them microloans. There's a group called the Women, which includes Commissioner Lundy. She's one of the executives on this group called the Women, and they specifically handle micro loans But they're a nonprofit. They're a third party nonprofit. They're not a city
They're not
organization.
floating the full thing. They're just like, we can give you a little bit more.
Right. We can give you $5,000 at 0% interest. Because I talked to Dasha about it a little bit once. I was like, hey, how's that work?
Yeah.
I was like, because I honestly, and this is the greedy me, whatever you want to call it. I was like, we've got some cash we've been sitting on that I'd like to make some better interest than the bank's giving me. And she's like, no, you donate it to us. I was like, what? I don't even get any of it back? She's like, no, it's a donation to us. And then we put that micro loan out at 0% or like 0.5% or something ridiculously small. And then when it comes back, we give it to somebody else. And we do it over and over again and compound it over and over again. I was like, that's pretty awesome. But, anyway, that's that. I know that one exists, but that's not a government organization.
All right.
It's not a similar style thing. But again, I mean, you and me, small businesses aren't doing a building. They're not building a building.
Right.
I know the city does have some facade grants where if you're in an older building, you don't have to make the building great. You just have to make the front of the building look nice.
Just make it look good from the outside.
Right. Make it look good from the street.
It's on you to fix all the plumbing and electrical.
Right. But they have facade grants so that you can get some help paying off.
We'll help you put a fresh coat of paint on the outside.
Right. But get some glass that's actually still glass. It's not shattered or broken or missing panes or whatever. But I mean, the overarching theme of what you're getting at, I agree with. Like, I think it's concerning that you have to be in the multi-million-dollar threshold before this is an option. I would like to see more options for.
We're like, oh, you're a little short on money. Well, that's okay. We'll help you out.
Right.
It's like, wait, you're a multi-million-dollar company or developer or whatever.
Right, and you're looking at like a 1 or 2% margin issue that you're not going to pay taxes for to make up the difference. Where it's like, I just need $10,000. Like, I mean, like, I wouldn't apply for it. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But like, to get to a full level of what I'd want to be, it wouldn't take for like, if I was going to do a standalone studio and if I found the right space and all that kind of stuff, maybe 100% built out everything I wanted to do, bunch of advertising to get people to come and sign up for my services and shit like that, maybe $25,000. There's nothing in place where I could be like, hey, county, I want to start this business.
Remember one of those portable sheds?
Here's my proposal.
Soundproof the shit out of it.
Right. Put it in my yard, which in county I could get away with. Like, county can't, you can't say shit, it's county, bitches. If I was in the city, that'd be a problem. I'd have to get permitting and permission, and I don't have a homeowners association. That's a good thing for this project.
Yeah.
But, and so like I've been looking at it. There's other shows. Like I was looking at one. I found a studio that's it's not a podcast. It's like a weird, I don't even know what to call them. Anyway, and it's just a one room little setup, kind of not dissimilar to this. It's a little bit like more permanently built. Like the walls are actually painted green. Like it's not a green screen that drops down like I have in here.
That's pretty smart.
It's kind of neat. Like it's really cool. There's track curtains. There's like 3 track curtains that are like stacked up against the wall. So you slide them over into the corner, and the whole room is fucking green. And so you put a desk in there, the chairs. You sit at the desk and chairs, do whatever show. Move the desk and chairs, bring in the lounge setup. Pull the backdrop from one of the sliding curtain things out, and now you have this other room.
Right. You're in the tropics.
Or you do the green scene, or you do the whatever. And but I mean, I was looking at it, and it's like, I want to say it's like a $20,000 camera that this show ran off of. But it's kind of cool. It's like I think they call it a POZ camera. Like it's the whole camera kit. It's one camera, but it pans and tilts. And it's just like you put it on a stand, you put it in the front of the room. It's got like 100-time optical zoom, but just sits there in the middle of the room, and you have a little controller over in the corner, and it'll move and turn around and do all the stuff you want it to do from there. And then they had a TV mounted next to it. And so, like, I mean, essentially, like, it's theoretically exactly how this room's set up. It's just a higher end version of it. But I'm sure they cost way more than I do an hour when I do Barbarian Productions. BarbarianProductions.com. Check them out. They're good stuff. You can see my successful work at the Compass Points podcast. I even do video editing.
Where can we find them?
On all your major podcast providers, as well as YouTube or CompassKnox.com.
Nice. I'll have to check them out.
I mean, you should. Like, I mean, that's one of the things. Like, I was thinking about it. One of the things I pitched at them because they're better at it than I am. I was like, you guys should do your year in review now. He's like, what? They're like, what do you mean? I was like, as a voter, right now would be a great time to remember the shit that Jacobs has done in the last year. that we've forgotten about, or that different county commissioners have done, or different school board members that are on the race now. Don't do it specifically after them because that would be pointedly political.
Right.
But like, you know, top 12 stories of the year. Like what was the top story of last July?
You do like election cycle in review.
Right. Which 2 or 4 year review or whatever. But then you could be specific on candidates, and that'd be kind of cool. But it would be, again, like one of the things I guess as a quote journalist, you got to be careful in that situation is like you can't do you got to be careful doing something like that because you're going to end up coming off a little biased against the incumbent.
Right.
Because unless the challenger is a long-standing political person or they're coming out of a different seat to this one.
Right. You're only talking about the incumbent.
Right. You're only talking about the incumbent. It could be good or bad, but it's going to come off a little biased for or against the incumbent. So you got to be careful with that. But as I was saying, just do a year in review. Top 12 stories of the year, one a month. Be a lazy way to do it. But with the way, I mean, their format and why I like them so much and why I suggest them to everybody, not only because it's now a product that I create, but why I suggest them so much is that's all they do. Like, you know, okay, elephant in the room, the fucking shooting in Texas, crazy fucking story. You know what Compass didn't do? A story on it. Why? Because it's in Texas. Their newspaper is exclusively, specifically, they don't even do state of Tennessee stuff unless it's related to Knoxville directly. And I appreciate that about what they do. I think that's important. I think it's a good news source if you care about what's actually happening here because WBR and Knox News barely touch it. Or if they do, it's in a 10-second blurb and you don't get any real depth in it.
Yeah.
And so I think I think they are the best resource in the truly local sphere. And so their 12 stories of the last year are going to be stories that include Christy and Mayor Jacobs and, you know, all these other players that are currently in cycle. But it's not going to, if you do it as a year in review instead of people that are on this ballot review, you don't have to come off as it being specifically biased. But again, as a voter, I'd like to oh yeah, remember that thing that Mayor Jacobs did that we all were fucking pissed about, that we forgot because it was a year ago? Because I mean, I could guess, like right this time last year, I was chasing down city candidates and we were all city race stuff. This time last year was when the rumblings and shit we're starting about getting the school board races partisan. I think this time last year is when last time I had Massey on and we did a session review show together and we went down through the huge list of shit that the state did last year. Might have been 2 years ago now. I think it was last year.
I think it was last year. So that's when she gave you one of those books.
No, that was the first time she was here.
Oh, okay.
That she gave me the yellow blue book. But Manus gave me the blue book, the new blue book. Apparently there's a white edition too.
Are you allowed to have it?
I don't know. It's still a blue book, but it's bound in white. Huh. I wonder how much we spend in the state. I wonder how much the state spends a year on those books.
I did read an interesting story. Have you ever heard the Jefferson Bible? It's one that Thomas Jefferson had. Apparently, he cut out a bunch of like the miracles basically out of the Bible. But up until a certain point, I don't know who exactly was doing it. I don't know if it was part of like the Jefferson Foundation or whatever. But each member of Congress got a Jefferson Bible. I guess maybe every new member of Congress would get a Jefferson Bible. I don't think it's done anymore. I thought it was kind of interesting that.
Why is it? Okay, back up.
Why is
his different?
I'm pretty sure he literally took like a little scalpel or whatever and cut out the miracles out of the Bible and just put all in like the good teachings of the Bible and just cut out the miracles. So I mean, not just miracles, but I mean basically cut out the miracles and other things like that. I guess try to break it down to just like the core moral tenets of the Bible.
So it's the archetypes, the moral archetypes of the Bible. Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Oh, I wonder how that'd go nowadays. I don't know how Alistair would feel about that.
Every member of Congress getting that?
Yeah. I'm sure there's a large swath of the public that would be quite pissed off at that practice, even if it is a modified Bible.
I mean, there's some that don't like the opening of certain legislative things being opened by prayer. There's been some lawsuits that people have brought. That's where some locales have had to try to do a more, I guess,
secular moment of silence.
Yeah, a little bit more, not really secular, but not pushing one faith versus the other. We're like, okay, well, if you want to do it that way, can I bring in, the not devil worshiping, the
Church of Satan?
Yeah, essentially,
The occult? My Wiccan...
Not really cult, yeah, but...
My Wiccan priestess?
I think there is actual, like, Church of Satan or whatever, but...
Right.
But bring in, like, any other religion, they're like, okay.
Right. Call your bluff. Bring it.
The no establishment clause is you can't prefer or push one religion over another.
So am I allowed to do my Judeo-Christian prayer before starting if the Wiccan priestess doesn't show up? Or do we have to... If the Wiccan priestess doesn't show up, no prayer happens?
We're not government.
I'm just...
I know you're trying to make a point. But that's one case that the Supreme Court's getting ready to decide. I'm trying to remember, I think it's in like Washington or Oregon. There's a football coach that was called out for doing prayers on the 50-yard line at the end of a football game.
Obligated?
And that's where it kind of gets into like the weirdness of it. If some of the players essentially would kind of feel almost forced to, because they don't want to be like the 4 or 5 like standing out and not
peer
doing
pressure.
it.
God damn it, peer pressure.
But it's more about, they said, you're fine to pray, but this is essentially during kind of school time. This is an organized school sport, and you're doing it. You're not like waiting until after the game, after the fans leave, going back to the locker room, have your prayer. That's one thing. If you're doing it, like during the game, is
doing it privately in secret where nobody gets to see what you're praying or hear what you're praying about. That's preferred.
No, not necessarily, but it's more about that kind of like pressure of feeling obligated.
Right. I'll agree that peer pressure is a terrible thing for teenagers.
Yeah.
I'll agree with that part of it. Sure. That sucks that you had to hear some guy speak some random words that you don't give a shit about because you felt pressured to.
All right, you can't do it during normal school, and that was the thing, that schools already have that rules. You can't have organized prayer during school.
I guess a coach is an employee of the school. All right, I hear it. Okay.
And then that also would extend to, during that school-sanctioned football game.
Right. And as an employee of the school, during a school-sanctioned event, you are not allowed to lead one. Because I want to say here they do it, it's usually like player-led or something like that.
Usually what, sorry?
Like player-led, a student-led, post-game prayer.
Not sure. Because I know, like, beginning of school, they didn't do the prayer anymore. They had, like, I guess when the announcer would come on and do the morning news, I think they would do, like, a moment of silence or whatever. We'd say the pledge and do the moment of silence.
I don't remember. I've done a fantastic job of blanking out a lot of stuff. I still don't think I went. I still
because we had
that comedy show,
the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and I think they could meet, but they had to meet like before school started. Basically, I think they would still meet out at like the flagpole.
Right, they were a club
on school grounds.
Right. There's a club thing, and there's
right, but I think they also had to do it outside of technically school hours. I'm assuming was probably one of the rules.
Yeah. I don't know. I get it. I truly do get it, but on the list of shit that's worth picking a fight about, that's not high on the list to me. There's more important things to talk about.
True.
Like, I don't know.
The talk about anything. There's always more important things to talk about.
I don't know. I think
bitch about the stadium or whatever, and they're like, "There's more important things to talk about than a stadium being built downtown."
Right, but on a national level, that's Supreme Court orientated, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think there's more important things to talk about. On a local level, no. I think the stadium conversation and the way our tax dollars are spent here locally, I think that's about as high as it gets. I think it depends on what level of government we're talking about. I think that changes the value of the conversation as far as where it could sit in importance.
The Supreme Court essentially is there to rule on court cases that are kicked up to them, have gone through the appellate courts, state courts, the regional federal courts or whatever, and they've been appealed and finally gets appealed up to the Supreme Court.
Because the plaintiff doesn't agree that the local government has the right to do what they're doing. That's the way the process is built, and I get it, and that's a good thing. The way the process is built for appeals...
Right, there is that appeal process.
The appeal process is, this case didn't go my way, but I think I'm right.
Right.
This case didn't go my way, and I think I'm right. This appeal didn't go my way, and I think I'm right. And that's because of the bias of the local court system. I need to take this to my state. Well, because of the bias of my state being Judeo-Christian and letting this thing happen, which I don't believe should happen by the separation of church and state rules, federally speaking, I'm going to appeal this to a federal court. and that's what kicks it up the hill. I jokingly say sore loser, but it is a sore loser process.
A lot of people kind of see the Supreme Court as like making rules, and it's not really. It's kind of they are in that position to be the final. Kind of the final
supposed to be
say on certain issues.
A clarify, like for a lot of Supreme Court stuff like that, it's a clarification on
whether or not a certain rule is legal or not.
Legal or not per the federal government. That's an important distinction.
Or per established rules, yeah.
But per federal established rules.
True, yeah.
Because the states can do what they want as long as they're not breaking federal established rules.
Right, yeah, you're right, yeah. Since it would have to be a federal case to get kicked up to the...
And that's where the things get all dicey, like the abortion one. The abortion one gets all dicey because it's unclear on whether it should be federally overseen or not. Because the argument on one side...
I thought I heard a pop.
The argument on one side is that it's a civil right. It's a bodily autonomy is a civil right, and that is federally protected. The argument on the other side is that this is a medical practice. It's a medical procedure, and instead it is not protected by any specific part of the Constitution, and that we as the states can make a decision on whether we are going to allow a certain practice in our state or not. Yeah. Because it's not specifically stated in the Constitution. And so that's the argument. Because, again, this is one of the things to me that I think people forget when they're looking at their Constitution on some of the rule or on some of the amendments. Because specifically on this one, I agree with the court. I agree with the leaked idea. The idea of the leak. I don't agree with the end result of it. Does that make sense?
How do you mean by the idea of it?
The idea in the leak...
Define the idea.
The idea in the leak is that this needs to be an issue that is settled by... the people. And to say the people, they mean the people elected by the people at large. That this isn't something that should be hinged on a previous court case. This is something that needs to be codified in law, and we will act accordingly. This shouldn't be a decision that we're making that is changing law and making new law of the land. This should be something that is written down somewhere. If we as a nation want to call an abortion a civil right, that it needs to be clarified in the Constitution to be so. That's the statement at play. If we don't want to do that as a nation, then we can leave it up to the states to make that decision, which is kind of how it's technically written currently.
Well, there's many federal laws that aren't amendments to our Constitution.
Either way, but it needs to be put into if as a nation we want this as a unified right, it needs to be put in law federally, not hinging on a court case from the 70s.
Right.
That's the point of. That's part of the leak. It's not the totality of it, and whatever you want to call it, because because the problem with it is that it's unclear. Because again, we go back in the Constitution.
It's unclear. I mean,
I have to look at it.
Gone up to the Supreme Court, and I think there's like two main cases. There's the Roe v. Wade, and I can't remember the other. I think that it's more recent.
Right, but it is unclear in federal law whether this is a right for you to do or not. So we made a decision on that based on this evidence in the 70s and the Roe v. Wade and then some other ones.
We talked about before where a lot of judges will, when they look at a case, they will look at the precedents. What has been decided on this same issue. Because they don't want to be the judge that's going against precedent.
Right, you break precedents, you get appealed, and then that looks poorly, that looks down upon you as a judge and other parts and pieces. I agree with what you're saying, but the point of the judiciary is not to make law. They're to clarify law. Other way. I can't do that anyway. It doesn't matter. I'll have to do that in post.
Sorry.
It's okay. We're still working out the new stand situation. It's more comfortable. It's just a little wonky. I need to get maybe a better version of that stand over there.
I think it just gets loose when I move it around a little bit.
Yeah. Like I said, I need to get a basket for it too. Anyway, but to me, you look back at the Constitution, to me, what was it, the 21st? Which one's 21? 21, 22. My pocket Constitution's upstairs.
The 21st Amendment?
Yeah. Is that the
repealed prohibition?
So 22 was suffrage?
Believe so.
My understanding, okay, and this might be my kind of biased understanding of it. It doesn't matter the specifics. There's two specifics that are at play here. There's the Civil Rights Act and the clarification of voting rights, basically. There's two big amendments that are the clarification of voting rights. To me, the original Constitution said that any adult can vote. And then they had to go back and clarify that means any adult, not just any white adult, or not just any white male. Then they go clarify again that says not just males.
22nd is the 2-term limit on presidency.
Yeah. What are you watching? Oh,
That ain't
my
me.
kid. Hey, we're trying to record a show, Loud.
24th, abolition of poll taxes. Right to vote. 26.
Women's. Anyway, it doesn't matter. My point is there's a couple of amendments to me that are clarifications.
That's right to vote at age of 18.
All right, anyway, I don't know. Lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
I again
19th. Women's right to vote.
19th. Okay. But I guess my point being is that something as significant as that should not weigh on the judiciary. It doesn't make sense. They're not the ones that's supposed to be making. They're supposed to be the one that are interpreting what's in front of them.
Right.
And this is something very specific, very clear, and it can be made into a federal law or not. And if it needs to be made into a federal law, then make it into a federal law. If we want to leave it to the states, leave it to the states. As of right now, if Roe v. Wade gets overturned, then it goes to a state option, which is how the Constitution is designed for it to be.
Right. I want to say a lot of people have kind of rested on the laurel of Roe being a decided federal decision.
But again, that's my point.
And that's where I get kind of confused on where we've asked lawyer Jamie about it.
But that's my point is the result of this decision versus the legality of this decision. Like, I disagree with the result of this decision personally. I don't like what the result of this decision is going to mean, but I agree with the legality of it. This is something that should be written into law specifically. It shouldn't be hinging on an ever-changing Supreme Court to be able to pull and take and give and take. Put it into writing, and then the Supreme Court can't make the decision because Trump got lucky and got 3 justices in his time in office. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
Like that's, to me, that's how it should be. It should be that we shouldn't have to worry about huge changes because one president got lucky and a couple of justices died more than we expected during his term or her term.
That's where kind of the weird precedence thing can kind of get a little wonky. So if you look at previous rules, where African Americans were, was it like 3/5, and I think that was a federal law. To where, if we relied upon that previous decision, where the fuck would we be now?
Right.
To where, yes, those are things that should be thrown out. I mean, Roe v. Wade was like 73.
Right. The 3/5 compromise, meaning for every 5 slaves you had, that counts as 3 people, 3 non-voting residents for population's sake for your congressional seats.
Right. Yeah. And it had to do with
congressional seats.
Right.
Representation.
Representation.
Right. Because, it's like we only have 20 people in this. Well, we have like 500 people in this county, but only 20 of them are white males. So we only have one rep here.
Right.
Where if we counted all 500, we'd get 3 reps, and that would give us more representation. Which is kind of, it's backwards in 1,000 ways.
Right. I mean, some of the new justices, were asked in their confirmation hearing.
I know.
And not just these 3, but going back to previous issues like before that. No, you can't call someone out for lying during their confirmation hearing. And it is kind of weird when you're asking to be confirmed. A lot of times you do have to say because they're wanting to ask them about controversial issues, and they're
right.
It sounds like I'm trying to not answer this question, but at the same time, this is an issue that could come up in the court.
Right. I'm not allowed to answer that, which I think is a weird rule, but that's the rule.
Right.
I'm not sure what the idea behind that rule is. I guess that's to protect the judge's ability to try to be impartial.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the main thing. Is they don't want them to already have a decided opinion,
right,
on a specific. They're supposed to look at each case,
right. But again, that stands to reason that the statement of, well, I see it as settled law. Well, it is settled law because there's not a case before the Supreme Court that I'm sitting in to unsettle it, and now there is. So honestly, legally speaking, these are probably some of the best lawyers in the country anyway. But legally speaking, it's not really a false statement either. Because
no, they're not lying when they say it's a precedent. But when you use that terminology, precedent means that is established law.
Well, every other time you brought it up, you always said it's settled. You always said that the term they used was settled. Like this is a settled issue, or this is the law of the land, or a settled whatever. It doesn't matter either way. Any combination of the words, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But my point being is that as of right now, that's a true statement because there is no case before the Supreme Court to change that. And so when that Supreme Court case comes to me, that's when it's unsettled because I am now settling it because that's my job.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's any cases that have come close to coming up to the Supreme Court at that level.
But again, you can't speak on what's in the Supreme Court right now anyway. So it's like, well, if I can't answer for something that's in there, and I can only answer for stuff that's up, that's my feelings on things that existed before. Well, it existed before. That means it's settled law.
All right.
I don't know. It makes sense.
Could be viewed either way.
So I want to talk about cops. You want to talk about cops?
You want to talk about cops?
Well, I mean, I wish AC was here to browbeat you with me. But like, I don't like this is the. I'm not pleased at the confirmation of why cops suck that we had that AC and I had last week with you.
Yeah.
I'm not pleased that this situation happened to prove the point, but it proves the point. Now I've heard conflicting stories on the cops going in and getting their kids out.
But
there's a couple different there like apparently in the press conference immediately afterwards, the chief of that police department had confirmed to the press that there were officers going into the school, getting their kids and taking them out, and then coming back outside to stand by while the action's going down.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
There is no question at this point that the actual local police essentially did nothing.
Yeah, for like 48 minutes, I think it's
right. And then a Border Patrol SWAT team that happened to live nearby.
Well, I thought I heard there was 2 that initially went in there, but then were pinned down. I guess got into some kind of firefight with him. Like
no,
in the
that
hallway.
was outside. That was before he got into the school. So here's the timeline as I understand it, and I'm not 100% perfect on it, but broad strokes here. The timeline I understand it is he shot his grandmother, didn't kill her. She calls 911, says her grandkid shot her, come save me. He gets in the truck, drives to the school.
Which was only like a block or 2 away.
Right. Wrecks his truck into the ditch in front of the school.
I don't even know how he got over there. I saw like the picture of where his truck was.
Where 2 officers encounter him. I'm careful to say encounter and not engage because I've heard engage or encounter. I've heard it both ways from different news sources or whatever. But encounter him outside the school. And I take it back. Multiple different sources that I'd heard it from as far as news companies talking about it is that they exchange fire with him outside of the school. He goes into the school. They stay outside.
I don't think they exchanged any fire with him. I don't think there were any police there on site at that time.
My understanding of it is
I think he'd shot at a couple people like before he went in the school.
And okay,
but apparently there was a door.
I'll see if I can find one of those.
There was like a door that was left open. It was how he ended up getting in. A teacher had like propped a door open.
Right, it was a back door. It was a back door teacher's entrance that was propped open.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to AP to look up, see if we can get a timeline. There's a whole subsection on the AP right now.
Yeah, so I think it was yesterday that I'm blanking on the governor's name. He came out and he was like, "I'm livid." He was like, "I came out to you guys 2 days ago, and I went off of what the information I was given, and I told you guys this, and I was misled."
Who was it?
The Texas governor. I'm blanking on his name.
Abbott.
Abbott, yeah. He was like, "I'm livid." He's like, I was in this room, like right behind us or whatever, and I was giving information, and I took notes, and I came out and told you guys all the information that I was just told, and apparently I was misled.
All right, so on the 27th, so this was yesterday, 18-year-old guy, I'm not going to bother saying name, shot his grandmother in the face in their home, then fled in her truck as she called for help, according to Greg Abbott and public safety director or whatever. A short distance away, Ramos crashed his truck outside the school, got out with a rifle, and approached a back door, officials said. They said an officer assigned to the school engaged Ramos, air quotes, quotes engaged Ramos, but the gunman got in the building and down a hallway to a 4th grade classroom. After locking the classroom door, he opened fire at 11:30, carrying multiple magazines with his AR or whatever. A team, including local officials and Border Patrol agents, ultimately forced the door open and shot Ramos to death. Other officers and responders shattered some of the school's windows so teachers and students could escape. Ramos was wearing a tactical vest, but no body armor.
This is weird.
There was another AR rifle in his truck and a backpack with several magazines full of ammunition found near the school entrance, assuming he dropped it. Don't care.
Yeah, I think I found one. I can't remember. I think it was from like a Houston local TV show that actually had like at 11:54 or whatever.
Yeah, that's the one that's what I was hoping to find, but either way.
I mean, there's a lot of a lot of questions about the response to it.
Right.
Because
And
apparently
again, it doesn't matter. Like, so
there's lots of footage of parents like outside, with their cell phone footage.
There's a mom getting tackled because she tried to break through the line of cops to go in and get her kid out.
Oh.
And I don't know if that lady's kid was in the particular classroom or not, but she's like, if you guys aren't going to do shit, I'm going.
All right.
And then they tackled her and detained her while this guy's in the school shooting kids, and they're not stopping him. And it goes down to the rule. It goes down to the fact that the number one bottom line fact that most people don't know because they think cops are supposed to protect and serve. They're not required to. Supposed to, yes, I guess, but they're not required to. They don't have to. I'm not going in there. I might get shot. Oh, okay. Well, then what the fuck are you good for if you're not going to go into the situation that we need you most in? This is where we need you to exist. These are needed places. This is one of the few times I'm going to say, yes, we should have cops around. Yeah. And these are the results we get.
Something's been pointed at whoever, I guess it was the director of public safety, whoever was on site, essentially the on-site commander at the time, was supposedly the person that was telling people to hold off and wait for backup.
I don't care. I don't care if you're a good, decent human being and you're a cop and you're and you're supposed to wear the badge with pride. I don't care if your commanding officer tells you no, you should be going in. Go in by yourself. I don't give a shit. That is literally like the bare minimum of what we expect of you as the public.
I agree.
And so I don't know. Like, I just think there's, I know it's small town kind of shit. They maybe not have the funding or whatever, but I don't know how. I don't.
And some of the footage I saw, I want to say like San Antonio SWAT, which I don't know how close that city is to San Antonio, but I thought I saw somebody that had like a vest on that said San Antonio SWAT.
I don't know. I would say, like, I don't know how. So I saw a post earlier and I meant to save it to share it with you guys and forgot about it, but it was literally like, it took 19 fourth graders to die for the United States public to learn that cops aren't required to protect you. And I don't remember if it was you. I thought it was you that shared it with me. It was a NPR or something like that. It was Radiolab. It was a Radiolab story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They talked about that. Yeah. I think it was like a story of Colorado, maybe.
No, the New York one was the one that I was pissed off at. In that one. Dude, so
there's about the woman that was divorced and her ex-husband had it? I thought that was worse.
That was a crazy one too. That was a crazy one as well. No, the one where the cops were following a guy that they thought was a serial killer. He gets on a subway train. They go into the conductor's booth talking to the conductor.
Yeah.
And while they're talking to the conductor, this serial killer who has been stabbing people to death all over New York City starts stabbing a guy on the subway, and they stay in the conductor booth.
Yeah.
And then make a joke. And I get gallows humor. I'm not complaining about gallows humor for the most part, but they the story from the victim and it says I can't remember what the phrase was, but they basically said, "Oh, well, he's fucking dead," as they stood over him as the medics were coming in to drag him out. Like, "Oh, he's gonna bleed. He's already bled too much. He's not gonna make it." So he wakes up from however long he's been in bed in the hospital, thinking, "Oh yeah, great, the cops were there," and then he hears the whole story. He's like, "What? That's fucking crazy."
Yeah.
And it's not even like, and it's not even a gun. Like, it's not even like the story in Texas that we have right now where it's a kid with a high powered rifle. It's a guy with a knife. Got two cops in there with guns and a guy with a knife, and they're scared and they don't act and they know they don't have to. And it's like, okay, like, and I can get the Supreme Court ruling.
Weird thing. I don't think that's something that's taught to where they would even know that they don't have to.
I mean, they do now. Every cop in the country knows it now.
I don't know if it's like just like a freeze thing. I froze up.
I think no. I
They
think
were-
I think they know it.
Green recruits, or if they were just transit authority.
I think they know it through
security.
stories and conversations and unofficial training with just hanging out with other officers and stuff like that.
Hey, if you
want
want to stay alive, don't do anything dangerous.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what all the weird guidelines, because I think they ended up talking to a lawyer. I don't know if it was after that in the Radio Lab thing.
Right.
I don't know if it was after that New York story, if it was after the woman who lost. I think she had like 2 kids that got shot like right outside the police station.
Yeah.
But it was actually the requirements of when police have to get engaged. That there was like this weird like understanding of both parties, that the police have to understand that the threat you have conveyed to them is a true threat.
Right.
They have to understand that you are in danger, and then I think you have to understand that what was it?
Right, and they have to understand
Yeah,
that
there
you're
was like
requesting
3 or
help.
4 levels to it.
Well, I mean, the better way to do it is like look at the history of policing. Like, if you want to go down the rabbit hole on it, what is the history of policing? Police forces were never built to protect the masses. They were to protect the state and big business. That's what they've always done. And that's what they continue to do. That's what they exist for. Do your history lesson, deep dive.
Okay.
Go crazy. That's what they're made for. That's why they were created. It wasn't a communal like thing where it's like we as a community said we want to put a police force together. Now, yes, over time as new things have happened, but the core idea, the principles that police forces are built upon, were built upon protect our businesses and protect our government buildings, protect our government officials, protect the wealthy class. That's what they were built to do, and that's what they're designed around doing. And so that's what they continue to do. That's the systemic issues in the police department, is that they're doing what they were built to do. Same thing with the schools. That's one of my problem with schools is. I learned some more depth on the Austrian model that the U.S. schools are built upon. Did you text me? Is that why you're smiling?
I wasn't smiling.
But that's what the schools are built on too. Same thing. Is it's this old model that had a.
Is it off the Austrian model? I've heard you mention that, and I think I've heard it outside of this as well.
I think it's Austrian. I might be conflating a couple of them, but the idea is that we need worker bees, and we need soldiers that won't run away. So that's where the indoctrination of schooling part comes in. Anyway, so moving on. Cracking beers. We're doing a show. Been talking to Constance. I'm still trying to work that schedule out. I'm scared to death of her, to be honest with you.
Ooh.
Like, she's really fun. Like, she's cracking me up. Because like I'm not picking fights. I'm actually throwing stuff on some of her posts that I'm trying to like support it. Like specifically on the school shooting one, she had all right, I'll fix it. God damn, I'll have to
Tighten this thing down. Like,
yeah, it's
take my Flintstone vitamins or something.
yeah, it's a weird set, but so like she did a post complaining about the cops not doing anything, and somebody had commented on her post about how like Greg Abbott should be fired and the governor's an asshole or whatever. And it's like, okay, whatever, but just to be clear that the Supreme Court ruled that a police officer is not required to put himself in danger to protect citizens. And then Constance comes at me with like this 3-paragraph fucking bomb about how much I'm an asshole and stuff like that. I think it's bullshit too.
It depends. You have to differentiate when you put statements like that out that you don't support it, because it seems like you don't agree with it.
No, but I'm saying like
But if you're just trying to point out that
in my comment, I was like, I think it's bullshit, but
Okay.
the Supreme Court said X. And she's like, don't be coming on my post telling my
Right.
Texas-born friend that.
She took it as that was you backing up. It's like, well, the Supreme Court says they don't have to.
Right, which is a true
And-
statement, but
right.
it's not. But it's
All right, she read it as that.
I
you
agree with
kind of
it.
support, yeah.
right. Which
I'm
again,
assuming that's why she would go.
and I guess
go off like that.
to roll back to that for a second, I guess I sort of do, but you should at least get fired. Like, it should be clear as day. That is your job. Like, what happens if you don't do your job? You get fired.
Well, I'm sure whoever was commander on that side is not going to be in that job more than probably a day or two.
Oh, his unions will do what they're going to do. He'll be fine.
Yeah, they just get transferred like what happens to some.
Right. He might get pulled off of
cops.
PR, or he might get pulled off of this. He'll be fine. He's not going to have any problems finding a job.
No. people know his names. I mean, with this whole like, what's the word? There's swatting, and then there's doxing.
Yeah,
stuff like that.
I bet. I mean, our attention span's so damn short. Everybody will forget about it in 15 minutes.
It's very possible.
I just think like my biggest issue with the whole thing, and I don't really care. I don't really want to go down the rabbit hole of gun control and background checks and all that and red flags and all that shit. That's not what I want to do. But I don't like. I get it. I understand that the United States has more guns per capita than anywhere else in the world. We also have more mass shootings than anywhere else in the world. XYZ. Like, I get those things, and that I wholly agree that there's correlation between the two. But to me, after these two mass shootings we've just seen, the question we should be asking is, what the fuck is wrong with our society that two 18-year-olds threw it all away?
This Buffalo shooter,
he was like
18-year-old as well.
Yeah, he was young. So what is wrong with the world? Like, what is wrong with the world? Because there's no way, unless you are next level crazy, that you go do those ones. I would even go to a step further, but at minimum, there's no way you're getting out of this without being in jail for the rest of your life. But I would say there's no way that you're going into this action thinking you're going to survive it. This was suicide for both of them. This was a suicide by cop with a bunch of innocent bystanders to go with it.
I think the Buffalo guy, when they
got arrested.
Yeah, I think he had the gun like to his head, like he was getting ready to commit suicide.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, so okay. So, you know, it's not excusing it. I'm not trying to put any more amount of agreeableness or okay, it's fine what they did at all in anything about what I'm trying to say right now. I'm just trying to understand, like, I didn't have the greatest high school experience.
All right, everybody's trying to understand why something like this would happen.
Right. And then, but continually, constantly. How many 18, 19, 20-year-olds are just killing themselves instead of killing people in the process?
Right.
How many 18, 19, 20-year-olds are ODing right now? How many other ways are kids dying? You know, they're making a big deal out of that now. Gun deaths have become have surpassed car accidents as the highest cause of death for under 25.
I think I did see something about that.
Right.
Yeah.
So everybody's making a big deal of that, and I get it. But of those number of gun deaths, the majority of them aren't mass killings. The majority of them aren't kids killing other kids or kids getting killed by parents. It's not kids getting killed by people. It's kids killing themselves with guns. That's the majority of the number. That's what we need to be talking about. Yes, I agree that the number of guns is part of the reason why, or part of the reason of how. Maybe that's a better way to say it. The number of guns is part of the reason to how these things are happening is because of the guns. But the why is not getting answered and not getting addressed. Why are 18, 19, and 20-year-olds killing themselves left and right? Because, again, to me, there's no way you sell this that these two kids weren't killing themselves and taking some motherfuckers with them. That's what was happening. That's what happened in Texas, and that's what happened in Buffalo. I'm going to take some motherfuckers with me. I'm a stupid, dumb, racist motherfucker in Buffalo. I'm going to take some black people with me. But, you know, whatever it is, why are so many kids killing themselves? That's the question we need to be talking about. Because to me, and I think this is an important thing, and it's going to sound callous or whatever, but to me, this is a consequence of being an American. Gun death is a consequence of being an American. People shooting each other is a consequence of being American. Guns are a part of American culture, and I don't see that that's a thing that we are willing to change as a nation. There are groups of people, there are large numbers of people that don't want guns as prolific as they are, but I think part of American culture is guns, and we're not getting rid of them. We're not going the Australia route and doing a gun buyback, and if we're not going to go buy back guns, then it's not going to work anyway. We're just going to have a huge black market.
I'm trying to remember, there was I think it was last week or week before, I don't remember what California city, but they did a gun buyback where they were giving out like $50 gas cards, and they ran out.
They ran out of gas cards?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, might be a good time to pull that trick because the economy is such a shithole. But
there's somebody looking for money, and there were some people. I mean, there's a number of people out there that, you know, 5-10 years ago or whatever, they bought that handgun. You know,
but
they weren't feeling safe at that time, and they're like, I've had this thing for, like, I haven't shot this thing in 3 or 4 years.
I don't even know if it works anymore.
You know, I should probably just go turn it in.
And I get that, but I'm just saying, like, functionally speaking, do you ever see in America with no guns? Let me correct this question.
Completely devoid of guns? No.
With nothing but hunting weapons. I'll say I don't.
Before, at this point, no, like, because there's no logical way to claw back, literally, the amount of weapons that are out
Right.
there.
And I agree with that. And partially because I'm the guy that thinks I should be able to own a tank. So obviously, you know, I'm okay. I want guns to exist, and it sucks that I'm not happy about it. But I have to acknowledge the fact that as a result of the culture that I want to be a part of in this country, this is some of the cost of that culture, and it sucks, and I hate it that it's a cost. But if we can acknowledge and agree that guns are not going away, it's not going to happen. It's not even me advocating for or against it. It's just not going to happen. Not in the America that we all think we live in. So if we agree that guns aren't going anywhere, then we need to attack the things we can attack. And the question to me is, why are kids killing themselves left and right? That's the question that really needs to get tackled here. That's the question that can have some real results. Because at the end of the day, most of the common sense gun laws that people want, that the NRA's all bent out of shape about, wouldn't have changed either of these events. And so unless we're going to go full on, there is no fucking weaponry in the public anymore, these things aren't going to stop.
Well, that was kind of weird thing with the Buffalo shooter. Apparently he had an incident at school, I think it was like a year or so prior to this incident.
I agree, and maybe he wouldn't have. I don't know. Maybe that was.
Or someone wondered like how that didn't get on to some kind of database
before
he bought those guns. If it didn't, get.
And
if
again,
it only got left with the city didn't give it out to the state or whatever. But
and I mean, I'll argue against most of the common sense. Personally, I don't agree with most of the common sense gun law either. But that's not the point. I guess I'm getting to right now.
I'm trying to remember if it was. So they were talking about, I think it was just with school shootings, but a majority of them had been essentially schools or kids that had been bullied, which, I mean,
that's fine.
You could say,
that's not okay.
There's different varyings. It doesn't make it okay.
Right. But I'm saying, but
some people wonder if that's what it is, if that's not what's causing that.
But if for the sake of conversation, if I say, okay, fine, I agree that that's
some of these kids went to do a school shooting just as retribution, where that's where the cause of their pain was, or whatever.
There are, at least in Knox County schools that I've experienced so far with my kids, there's a huge amount of anti-bullying campaigns inside the school systems. So they're not working. Maybe other states aren't doing them like we are. Maybe ours are working, but not really. Like Mr. Jackson from District 1 school board race sent me an email. Let me find the actual message he sent me.
I mean, you can have all the anti-bullying programs. That's not going to change really the mentality.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, so he sent me, Mr. Jackson running for District 1, he sent me a text earlier. He said, hey, man, 14 major incidents in the last 9 years under the school security property. So for some context, if you haven't listened to him, Reggie Jackson's running for District 1 as an independent in school board. And that was one of the most insightful interviews I've done. Not necessarily at him as a candidate, but as one of the things that school board actually has a ton of control over that nobody pays attention to. And especially right now is a huge conversation. So Reggie had spent some time, he was a school resource officer for a period of time. So he was on the job, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And so he has some insight in how it works and stuff. And I was like, this is something I had never even thought about as far as school board conversations. I've talked to plenty of school board people, and I've never talked about school security as a thing that the school board could do some stuff about. That is policy school board can set. Like one door policy, which I think is already in place, to be honest. But at least at my kid's school, is a one-door policy. Actually, no, it's not. I take that back. It can't be a one-door policy. You know why?
Fire code.
No. They have a bunch of kids that do their classes in trailers in the backyard of the school. They have to be able to get into the lunchroom and the gym and stuff like that from other doors than the front door. But one-door policy being one of the items.
Shh, don't tell people that.
So you can go get a bunch of kids in the outbuildings, just can't get into the big building.
Yeah.
So like one-door policy, how many officers are at each school, that kind of shit. Like that is stuff the school board controls. And then I hadn't considered, and honestly, the more I think about it, that is a very significant role the school board has in that department. Of
setting school policy,
of setting the policy, as well as the budgeting for that subset of Knox County schools. Because again, for the clarification of anybody out there who doesn't know any better right now, which is most of Knox County, SROs are not deputies. They're not KPD officers. They are not Knox County Sheriff's deputies. They are bonded by the Sheriff's Department, but they're not deputies.
I think they can detain but not arrest.
Now, I believe every single high school that is in the city limits has a KPD officer that's assigned to them, and every single high school that's out has a deputy that's assigned to it, as well as their SRO. And then some other schools have actual police officers that are assigned to them on top of the school resource officer that is provided by the school system.
I think Knox County Schools already put out a statement like a day or two ago. They're like, our kids will be safe. We will make sure that they are law enforcement staffed. But
I think what as I talked a little further to Reggie, that was kind of unclear in his first statement. These 14 major incidents were things that happened and didn't get clarification or didn't get reacted to correctly by policy or reasonably. Like there was one at Gibbs a couple weeks ago. Some kid said in social media or something like that the night before that he was going to come shoot up the school tomorrow. And a parent found out about it, called the school or called apparently there's an overnight line or something like that, or you can call, I guess you call the sheriffs or call 911.
Yeah. And
they have there is a night watch for the school system who would is supposed to take information like this in and then relay it to,
right. There's a lot of things that can happen between 3:30 and
right. Hey SRO, SRO of Gibbs, there has been a complaint brought to us that there's a kid that's planning on coming and shoot up the school tomorrow. Here's his name, here's his grade level, whatever it is. What do you need to get? Whatever it is. So, but as it's been explained to me, is that parent who notified went into school in the morning with his kid and went to the SRO and said, hey, this happened last night on a chat. What are we doing about this kid? SRO's response is, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
So incidents like that have happened, and I don't know the whole story on it, where it went from there past that and all that kind of shit.
Right.
Constant had a statement about it that I didn't get because she always speaks in vagaries. She said something like, if Gibbs was a bunch of black kids, that kid would be dead right now. But Austin East kids are the ones that get shot by cops, not Gibbs kids.
Right. Well, there was some question about that with how the Buffalo shooter was apprehended.
Right. The white guy gets out alive and the Mexican guy gets shot to death.
Well, they're not just pointing it. This was before the Olved, say the Texas shooting.
Olved,
yeah.
Olved, whatever. Questions about how he got apprehended?
Yeah, about how he got. A lot of people were like, hey, if this was a African American person, a person of color, of anything that had just shot a whole bunch of people in a supermarket, the police wouldn't have came in and been like, hey, put your gun down.
All right, so
hands up.
I've heard 2 different false flags on the Buffalo shooter. One of them, actually, I need to look it up. Let me correct. I've heard one specifically about the Buffalo situation.
Mm-hmm.
The security officer at the Buffalo school who got shot trying to stop the student from coming in. I'm not shot
at a grocery store.
The security guy that was working in this shopping center or whatever.
Yeah.
Got shot trying to deal with this guy or whatever. He had apparently invented a water-powered engine. Like, there's a video of it. It's kind of crazy.
Wait, that
the
security guard had?
Mm-hmm. And so the conspiracy theory is that this white nationalist that went to shoot up a bunch of black people just did the whole shooting just to cover up the shooting of the one guy because big oil or whatever doesn't want the technology for water-powered cars on the market.
Interesting.
Okay, do I need to clarify myself right now? Like, or can I just leave that where it is and we can move on?
Where it is, yeah.
I don't need to clarify that. Like, I thought it was a crazy conspiracy theory. I'm not trying to advocate that I believe such thing.
Yeah, it's space cadet shit.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I could say that, and it doesn't mean that I believe that. It's just I heard it and I thought it was crazy.
Oh, that was crazy. Some of the false shit that's come out of the Texas shooting. One of them was actually retweeted by a national congressman.
Which was that?
Which congressman?
No, which?
The shooter was a transgendered Hispanic was on the run from authorities and was already wanted by Border Patrol of being an illegal alien that had committed crimes in another country or whatever.
Okay, yeah, I did hear a little bit about the trans stuff. Yeah. Who did that? Burchett?
No, that was
Haggerty?
Paul Gosar.
Who's Paul Gosar?
I think he's Nebraska representative. No.
Oh, I thought you said
exactly
our.
where he's from.
I thought you said our.
Our national, our
Okay.
American.
I'm sorry.
Our American national congressman. Sorry, I should have been more specific when I said our. Our broader collective representative.
Okay, so Elizabeth Murphy, former city council candidate for District 1, the pea drinker one that we tease about all the time. She says, I don't dig into these things much at all anymore, but this one has false flag written all over it. FF does not mean real people didn't die. As always, question everything. And this is a...
What's FF?
False flag doesn't mean... Right. And so the question, so the post is, and I for part of this post, I actually kind of agree with it. I think it's a good, it is a good part of the conversation. Maybe not a good part of the conversation to have. It really doesn't fucking matter, but it is an interesting little subset. How does an 18-year-old living with his grandmother have 2 brand new Daniel Defense AR-15s worth $5,000 plus ammo, plus optics with body armor, which he didn't have? That's a lie. And a $70,000 pickup, which is his grandmother's. What about his therapist who specializes in hypnosis?
Worth $70,000, maybe brand new.
What is Project Deep Dream? And I'm curious what Project Deep Dream is, but whatever. The front half of that I actually think is a valid question.
I would recommend against Googling Deep Dream.
Okay. I need to figure out.
Click on comments and see what comes up as like the most common. Or if anybody that's connected to her have actually pushed back on this shit, like what the fuck are you talking about? Go drink some more piss.
This person says every time I hear about another catastrophe that this suits the aim of the leftist political agendas, I think the same. I want to know why the police sat there for an hour. I have so many questions. This one makes me angry. I agree with that statement. I'm
just wondering if there was actually anybody that pushed back on it. Like
they don't want you to know that you are giving your healthcare rights away to the WHO, which is China, and you can't do anything about it. Police were told to stand down. Assuming they were following orders, what are they saying now? Hindsight should have been speaking all the while, whatever. They found nearly 1,700 rounds of ammo. Seriously? He works at Wendy's. Again, I think that's a valid part of the conversation. That is an interesting, maybe not a valid, it doesn't change anything really, but it's something interesting. I don't know the full value of the 2 ARs that he had. But low-end ARs are $1,200.
Nah. I've seen, I guess, because AR, apparently there's a wide spectrum. I don't know a lot about ARs, but apparently...
it's Armalite, it's the body it's really the body style.
Right,
really
but there's essentially, I've heard there's models from $300 up to, $2,000 or $3,000.
Okay. That'd be interesting.
Depending on the caliber.
Either way, fine. Let's take the cheap end and say $500 a piece.
Right.
So that's $1,000 in guns. Last time I went ammo shopping, it ain't cheap right now. And it's 1,700 rounds.
Has that been confirmed? That's what they actually found on him?
I want to say they said he had
I heard he had ammo in his truck.
Well, the AP story said that there was.
How many boxes of ammo would be 1,700 rounds? Is that what we said?
Yeah, it depends on the box, but I bought 1,000 9mm rounds when I bought it, and it was like a box.
That's 9mm versus. Well, I guess a lot of ARs are essentially pistol.
Yeah. But I want to say that was $300, and that was range rounds. Those aren't right. Hollow points or anything. And hollow points are like 4 times as expensive. Anyway, moral of the story is I think that is an interesting question. Dude works at Wendy's, lives with his grandma. This shit ain't cheap.
No, he lives with grandma. He didn't have any bills to pay.
Fair enough. He doesn't like her. Apparently, shot her in the face.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, I find that to be an interesting subset of the conversation. I don't think it changes a lot. I don't think it changes a lot.
Prioritize whatever the fuck you want.
Right? Because
I know lots of poor people that have some pretty nice shit, and I'm like, why did you buy that?
Well, any 18-year-old goes out and buys a fucking PlayStation or an Xbox 360 or some shit like that. They ain't cheap, and they buy a dozen fucking games.
Right.
But they're working at Wendy's.
Right.
So
I could put it on his credit card.
I did right. No, you cannot. Well, not in Tennessee.
Okay.
It had to be cash or debit card when I bought my gun.
Wouldn't surprise me if it's okay in Texas.
That's probably true. Fair enough. Fair point.
I don't know. I would assume you could. I didn't know that was a thing. You can't put it on a credit card.
I think that's the law in Tennessee. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
I mean, that kind of makes sense.
I mean, I put it on a card, but it's a debit card when I bought both my rifle and my pistol.
Right. No, it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, I mean, you can buy just about anything on a credit card. I don't know why ammo would stop it, or a weapon.
Well, our director, some educational person here in the state of Tennessee, is the owner of an online ammo dealer. They take credit cards. They're also getting sued a couple times, but
yeah,
I don't know. Like, it's weird that he's in education. I'll agree with that. I don't like why is him selling like what? I don't know.
I heard an interview earlier, and I don't want to keep dwelling upon.
It's the biggest.
This
the fucking huge story. You can't not.
No, I mean, it's just as far as like gun control. Period. Not this tragic event. A lot of people have kind of listened to an interview earlier today, and I think it was actually a woman. I think she was a former representative of somewhere in Texas, but it's kind of gone back to maybe we should think about arming teachers.
Oh, the meme running around right now. Are you going to do that one?
No, I haven't seen a meme. I don't keep up with memes.
There's a good one.
I am not that cool. It makes
me laugh.
No, I haven't seen whatever meme you're referring to.
It says, y'all don't even start talking about arming teachers. You don't even trust us to pick books. I was like, that's pretty spot on. That's good.
Yeah,
that's got some zing to it. I like it. Anyway, what was the story or the interview we were talking about?
Oh, she was for it. Of I guess, quote unquote, responsibly arming teachers.
I mean, I'm not opposed if the teacher wants
back to it. I think, Ted Cruz and some other Texas representatives, we're pointing what you were talking about earlier of having like the kind of one door policy, which, some late night talk shows were like, I think the fire marshal would have something to say about that.
Well, but I think that was intentionally just to make Ted Cruz look like a dick. I don't think he's trying to say that the building should only have one fucking door on it. It should have one door that people are allowed to go in and out of. No,
he was saying it should have like one entrance.
Right. Which is what a lot of schools do, and a lot of places do. Like our school doesn't do it. Our school.
It depends on like what those other doors are locked. If they're locked only from the outside, you can open from the inside.
Right. You have to have the fire escape part of it. The thing about it is that like my kid's school, as soon as the bell rings and the day starts, there's one door that you can go in and out of. There's like 20 fucking doors in the building.
Right.
And when we have events going on and the drop off and pick up and that whole procedure and everybody going in and out during change time.
Right. Now
every fucking door in the school is wide open and there's kids running everywhere.
Right. I think I've mentioned before that I've kind of plugged a little, or not plugged a hole, but like showed a little crack in that system when I would go to one and they had the little call button. I'd hit the call button. They're like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, I'm here to blah, 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 like first door, and buzz me in.
Right.
I literally mumbled gibberish.
That is so you.
And was buzzed in.
That is so you.
Because I noticed it after the first few times that I had kids there.
Right.
So I got curious, and I'm like, this is kind of weird. Like, I'm not sure if they really understand it. I mean, I'm just saying, I was like, I'm here to pick up so-and-so. They're like, okay, first door. I mean, I don't want to, advocate always being immediately suspicious of, like, anyone coming into the school.
Oh,
at the same time, at that school, I could walk into the door. I didn't walk directly into the. You weren't. Like, which I guess is the school we're talking about here. You didn't. You don't go directly into the office. Right. This, I could essentially bypass the office.
Right.
It was. There was doors to the side. I was. I'm past the front door. They could. The secretary ladies could see me walking through. Right. That was it.
But at that point, you're already inside.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I've already been buzzed in.
Right. I mean,
there was a camera, so I mean, I guess they did have footage of at least, the person coming in, supposedly, if the camera's working.
Right. And I mean, yeah, if they had the camera out there and they've seen you before and whatever, blah, blah, blah. But again, I get what you're saying. Because, I mean, that's how our school is. You're going to buzz in, you're going to stand there. Right. But
I mean, it's a delicate edge of having it be like a hardened war zone and it trying to be a school. Where kids feel safe and comfortable. But
again, I think to pound a little bit of a point, I think the class or the characterization of what Ted Cruz is trying to say about making one door policies mandatory. Yes, it's dumb because certain schools it just doesn't function. My kids.
I heard what else he said. Like he was doing some stupid shit.
My school cannot function with a one door policy because of the way the outdoor classrooms and shit like that work.
Right.
But the characterization is that he wants schools to only have one door. It's like, no, he wants them to only use one door.
I mean, you could have proximity
for
cards
access.
for that school that has outdoor.
Right.
That one door you just...
Right, and they come in and out all day for recess and shit from all parts of the building and stuff like that. But for outside access, there is one door. We are a one-door school.
Yeah.
For the actual... For people who are not there, except... Like, I guess you could walk in and hide in a bathroom when all the kids come in. Maybe the mic stand's broken because you keep hitting it with your fucking beer, bro.
That was the first time my beer has hit this. Let's see, it's already loose again.
Yeah. Anyway. I still think we're missing the point.
I think we're looking for
the easy answer is
just like, hey, this will fix it if we do this, and there's not.
Right, but I think that's
if somebody wants to do something, they're going to find a way to do it. That's what criminals do, breaking into banks.
I agree with that. Well, that's surprising actually coming out of you, but I agree with that 100%. But I think the problem is why are our kids killing themselves? That's the problem we need to be attacking here. Why? Why does that sound like a good idea at 18 that I don't need anymore? I've already lived enough.
And some people have pointed to, I guess, Greg Abbott's, I guess, in previous years when they've debated, I guess, part of their gun policies of increasing funding for mental health. And some people have kind of pointed that being the cause. It's like, hey, you had people, we had a chance to possibly...
You want more guns?
Struggling
give
people.
Us more mental health help.
Yeah, they're trying to help struggling people that are on the verge of snapping basically.
But again, I think it's broader than that though. I think it's not just. I don't think it's basic mental health. I think it is a. We have an overall cultural sickness in play. I think it's partisanship.
It's semi-societal. I mean, like you said, you see America as just the gun nation.
But
we've just kind of accepted that. That's just the American way.
But we are being taught and trained on a regular basis that they are the other and they are the enemy.
Who?
Whatever they are, it doesn't matter. Whichever part you're closer to, you're getting told on a regular basis that you're part of our team, the other team is the bad team. Here's all the reasons they're evil. Here's all the reasons they're bad.
They're coming after you.
Right. They're going to come. They're the replacement theory and ridiculousness or whatever. The reason that conspiracy theories are fun, especially the ridiculous ones is because there's nuggets in there that really actually make sense. There's nuggets, there's pieces, there's truth to parts and pieces of it, and then people go wild with it.
How much nuggets of truth in there is to it, but go ahead. I
mean, that's an important part of my point.
Okay, I see. Yeah, there are like a semi-nugget of truth.
We don't trust
that gets exaggerated.
We as a nation don't trust our government. Period. And there's part of that that's good. That is a good thing. We shouldn't just blindly trust our government all the time. But we have two different versions of distrust for our government.
How does this have to do with mass shootings?
Because half the world hates you. Automatically. That's what we're taught. Whichever side of the political aisle on, whether you're a white dude or other, you are taught that we are taught through media, we are taught on a regular basis that the other half hates us. And they're trying to destroy you and your way of life. You're going to just let them destroy you and your way of life?
No, I was saying, you're saying most people don't trust government. How does someone's distrust of government
that's just part of the puzzle.
Make them want to...
Because, okay, so who's telling you...
That's a part of the puzzle.
It is part of the puzzle. Who's telling you the truth? Who's telling you... Who's right? Because when the government comes down because of your crazy fucking conspiracy theory idea that you're following and says, that's a mistruth, blah, 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 that's the misinformation or disinformation or whatever. It's like, you guys lie to us all the time. You do. It's just a fact. You lie to us all the time, so I'm supposed to believe you this time? For a lot of people, sometimes correctly, sometimes incorrectly, when the government says that's a lie, that confirms that it's true to a lot of people. Yeah. Because they're always lying. So why would I stop?
I guess I can kind of see what you're saying on that.
But that's
thought of it.
But that's every angle. Everything is everywhere all the time. What's that? There's a movie. I want to look. I want to see it. It's supposed to be pretty good. Everything all the time, everywhere, or something like that. It's a new movie. It's about like social media and media at large, and just the way that our lives have become like everything all the time.
All right.
It's like, I mean, realistically, does this shooting in Texas affect you at all? Other than making you sad because it's terrible, but like day to day, your life, Does it change anything for you?
Directly, day to day, no.
No. Is it important to you?
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's sad. It's terrible. It's not a cool thing. It's not okay. I'm not trying to make it okay, but realistically, what was that, Wednesday morning?
Yeah, I think it was 3 days ago.
Other than all we've talked about for the majority of this show, for most people I've talked to on and off here and there, most conversations that I've had in public have been about the shooting in Texas. Other than conversation, my life has changed zero. So has yours. And so has 327 million people's. But everything in the world right now, or at least everything in our world right now, is talking about this. We can't help ourselves because this story is so big. And it is tragic, and it is terrible. I'm not trying to say it's none of those things.
All right. I don't say it's being like overplayed, because I don't think it is, because you can't overplay something like this. At the same time, I almost feel like maybe they should push it more just because of our quick amnesia.
But again,
there's some people that have asked, I mean, even with after COVID and all the school shootings and mass shootings that we've had, are we getting desensitized to this? Is this becoming a normal thing that are there people becoming more acceptive of this is just America?
But okay, so
we've got a lot of guns. Yeah, we're going to have shootings because we have a lot of guns here, and we have a lot of pissed off people here.
Well, so then let's talk solutions. I mean, what's the solution? What's the response to this? I mean, okay, so we need to talk about it. We need to make a stink about it. I mean, I think number 1A is I think that we need to have a real conversation about what police are supposed to do.
I'm just saying I'm supporting. I don't want to beat the drum.
No, let's beat the drum
about it. But at the same time, I think we also need to realize that we also have a very short attention span.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. But let's beat the drum. Let's make it a big deal. Let's get some action. What action would you see? Could you see happening that you feel like you might say, okay,
bring
this
back
might
the assault
actually
weapons ban that was passed in 2004 that apparently expired 94 and expired. I guess it had some kind of 10-year window on it that it would be reevaluated or relooked at.
Right, and
10 years later, because I guess it didn't
got
get
sunset in 04.
Is that what it was? It got sunset.
I believe that's the word. Is that it had a sunset provision that this is not continued law. This will be law for a period of time. Yeah. And at the end of the period of time, we will readjust whether we should continue this.
I think that really only outlawed fully automatic weapons. I think was what.
Which
that
I believe
was about.
there's still. I believe that there is still a federal fully automatic weapon ban.
Yeah.
So this is not a fully automatic weapon. So I guess part of the question is, what is stupid AC? What is the definition of an assault rifle? Because AR does not mean assault rifle.
It is very vague.
Because it's a semi-automatic. It's a pistol with a long barrel. Is that our definition of an assault rifle? Because I think that's an important question, because I don't think people know what they're talking about when they're talking about it. Because my 9mm upstairs, that in the state of Tennessee I can carry with or without a permit, and I can buy with a background check if I buy it from a store, and I may be able to buy it on a credit card, I'm not sure. But my 9mm that I have upstairs is, for all intents and purposes, is the same gun, just less accurate after about 15 yards.
Right, and I think that's part of it, where you do have the extended barrel, so you have extended range
and accuracy.
Extended accuracy.
But again, I think, that's an important part of the conversation. So again,
we have magazine capacity. I think that could elevate something up to a quote-unquote assault weapon.
Okay, again, because I don't know the answer to it, and that's actually I'm truly asking the question because I'd like to know what the generic.
And like you said, it is a very vague term, and I don't think
because to me, assault rifle would be.
I think part of it, the design of it was to be kind of vague. They're like, well, no, this is pretty much it's just pistol rounds. This is just a 9mm handgun. We'll just make the barrel a little longer, and we put excessive grip onto it.
No, I mean, I think
but it's basically just a pistol.
I mean, I think the military has a definition of an assault rifle.
But I'm assuming, and the designing of it was meant to look more militaristic, so it's appealable. The people want that. They're like, hey, I've got the same thing. The fucking Green Berets are going in, man. Navy SEALs, man, they got this shit.
But they don't.
I think that's part of the appeal of it and the sell point of it.
Sure,
like,
but they don't. It's not the same gun.
This looks tactical. No, yes, I agree. Yes, okay, it is exactly not the same gun. But they can look just like it.
So it looks cool.
Makes
it more dangerous.
Why do you think people buy like sports cars and shit?
But it makes it more dangerous. But sports cars
does it make them more dangerous in certain aspects, and when they're easily modified, yes. When a $5 upgrade part could turn something from semi-auto to fully auto.
You added two variables to my question.
Yeah, sorry.
Does it look cool? Make it more dangerous. No. Does the fact that it's easily modifiable make it more dangerous? Yes. Does the fact that it look cool make it so? No.
No, it just increases the selling point.
Okay. That's fine. I'm just saying, like, those are two totally separate variables in the gun that have totally different results. My God, my dog is losing his shit. But
I mean, with the increased sales point of it, that's where at the same time you could also turn around years later and it's like, well, we've sold so many of these and we haven't had any issues out of the ARs that we've sold.
Okay, we're wildly
we're going down the
we're wildly off the point of the topic here. Like,
but yes, the fact that it's easily modifiable.
I see that as a thing. I can get behind that.
So that's one thing. The California buyback I was talking about. I think this even had like ghost gun like parts that were turned back into them. But that's another issue. A side note of the ghost guns. Yeah.
I mean, you're like, I'm not the person to talk about ghost guns too because I'm the one that likes them. I think I think there's I don't trust my government either. I think I have a more healthy distrust of my government. But
compared to
people that go shoot up elementary schools,
I'll give you that with my fingers crossed.
But I mean, because I don't want to kill kids, I just don't want the state to kill me without me at least throwing a rock back or something. But anyway, I think the definition is important. Like, because again, I don't know. I don't know the specific of the gun this kid had.
So all of it. I mean, you've got increased magazine capacity.
Right.
You've got increased range.
Which is the least realistic thing about video games.
Can I take this in now?
But that's the least realistic thing about video games.
Magazine capacity?
Yeah. They might have magazines.
Most of them have gotten pretty damn close.
Yeah, but they flip so quick, and it's like you can carry.
I think some of you get like 30, which is semi-accurate with
the
weapons that you use.
But you can carry 30 magazines.
Oh, well, yeah.
And run and jump.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. The end actually, and you can drop and load in like 2 seconds.
I don't know of any kind of where it's a little bit more military based, but some other games where you do have a limit where your weight is increased.
It slows you down.
How many resources and what you have on you. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
that's
some of it you're carrying 500 rounds of this, 500 rounds of that, right. 800 rounds of this.
My 1,000 round of 9mm is two hands.
You had to have a damn trailer behind you on like a ski sled.
My 1,000 rounds was two hands. Like you're not just going to pick that box up with one hand. Like my grip strength could not hold that box.
Right.
It was a little awkward shape too, but I mean it was both hands holding on tight. It was a heavy box.
Right.
It's like, I don't want to drop this at all. I don't even want to pretend like it's an option to pretend like I might drop this.
Right. Well, I've seen some pretty cool, like, hiking. There's some hiking packs that have, like, a little... I don't know if they've been upgraded up to the military, but they've got essentially it's a spring-loaded thing that keeps your pack where it'll kind of bounce as you walk, but it's actually meant to hold that much more.
Yeah.
To where it doesn't really affect you as much, and you don't kind of feel that bounce of weight.
Interesting.
So, yeah, you can throw a shit ton of rounds in this backpack that...
I mean, I get, like... And if you're well
doesn't mess up the way you're trying to run.
Okay, back up. All right. Yeah. So, let's make some noise. We're mad. This sucks. We cannot let this keep happening and be okay and be normal. This cannot become a normal thing, which it already is. It's been a normal thing since we were in high school. Like, it's been a normal thing for our entire adult life. We've had one of these.
There really wasn't much more before Columbine.
That was in high school.
That I recall. Right.
That was in high school for us. I'm just saying for.
All right, we actually looked it up earlier. I was thinking it was.
It was 98.
It was 99.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was 2000. I thought it was right before.
I was our junior, senior year. I don't remember, but but for our adult lives, this has been normal. I mean, if we're counting Columbine as number one in the new age of mass school shootings, we've had a big one every handful of years, but we've had a couple every year.
Yeah.
I have a problem with some of the statistical conversation too. I think mass shooting is a weird word. 4.
Yeah.
4 people shot. Not 4 people killed, 4 people shot. and the shooter, the initiator of said thing counts as one. So when you shoot 3 people and shoot yourself, that's a mass shooting. I mean, it sucks. I just think, I don't know, mass.
What do you think the limit should be?
I mean, I think mass is
10 or more.
Yeah, maybe double digits or close to it. I don't know. I just think it's a weird, like it's an inflammatory phrase to me. Like it's to make you. To me, that phrase makes it big. And 4 people dying is not little. Don't get me wrong.
Okay, that's what I was about to say. I mean, like,
but it's not. I don't know. I don't know.
How many people is not enough?
Okay, so if you were walking down the street and 4 people crossed the road, would you say a mass of people crossed the road? Would that be a term you would use in regular language? That was a massive amount of people that just crossed the street.
Depending if I was a physicist.
I'm just saying. But, if 100 people cross the street, you said that's a mass of people, that makes sense. Right. Even in like a downtown busy area where there's a bunch of shit going on, 4 people cross the street, you're not going to say mass of people.
Right.
It's just that's just not how people talk. And mass of people is a little bit of a weird term anyway. Right. But I mean, it's going to be 10 people, 15 people. For like a normal person to say that's a massive amount of people. Like we were watching the soccer game this afternoon, right? You were watching the work. I was watching
of 5 or more.
There was 120,000 people in that football stadium watching that soccer game or football game today.
That's capacity,
something like that. It was 100. It was close to 100. That's a massive people.
Right.
That many people get shot.
That's a massive amount of people.
Well, what does massive mean?
Large.
Massive is it's an adjustment of the word mass. Like it's not. It is the root word is mass.
Right.
And so I'm just saying that's a massive amount of people. Nayland Stadium film up's a massive amount of people.
Right.
Like that's how people talk. And so to say mass shooting with 4, those things don't go together. That's my problem with that phrasing. But
4 sounds funny, but for some reason 5 sounds fine with me.
Okay. But I'm just saying, like, and I get it. We're going to overplay the number because it's still a big deal, and we want to make a point that this is a big deal. That multiple people are getting shot all the fucking time by one shooter, and it sucks. It's been our entire adult life.
I mean, would you rather that or downplay?
But that's not the point I'm getting to. The point I'm getting to is that
the question that I'm asking.
We agree that for our entire adult lives, this has been the world we live in. This is more or less normal. Elementary school is a little bit abnormal, but 10, 12 dead in a school shooting every couple of years is not uncommon. 4 plus mass shootings. How many a year? Dozen a year in the country or something like that. It's not. It is normal. It just is. What are we going to do about it? Are you
saying you're okay with that?
No.
Okay.
Did I say I was okay with that?
You're saying it's normal.
I'm saying that yes, by the same definition of not carrying $10,000 in cash in your car that you put out last week, because that's not normal. Because most people don't do that normally. Most people don't do that all the time. That's not normal. That's odd. Well, something that happens on a regular basis in this country, not on a fixed regular basis, but a pretty consistent number every year. At least
I think you're misconstruing the definition of normal.
It's not moral. It's not just because
something.
It's not. It's a normal occurrence. When you say the phrase "normal occurrence," it would be
normal exudes acceptable.
I disagree with that 100%. As a definitional crossroads or whatever, it is a normal action. It is a normal activity. It is normal that the United States military goes and burns down a neighborhood. It is normal that that's not a normal one, actually.
Exactly. It is, and just the way you use it is exactly what I'm trying to say.
So one example. So it is normal that the United States military goes and kills civilians when they're in other countries.
No.
Yes. It is normal.
No.
It happens all the fucking time.
No.
Every time they go. It is normal that I stub my toe when I walk down the street over here because there's a crack in the road.
We're gonna have to I don't think we're close to almost an agreement.
Then what's the word? What's the word for something that happens on a fairly regular basis that we're used to?
I think it would be more acceptable that it's becoming all too common.
Okay, it's all too common. So anyway,
which has that connotation of it being something that is unacceptable and non-normal.
I disagree.
Sorry. In my definition,
I disagree I disagree that normal has a positive connotation to it, but fine. all
I
too
would say
common.
positive, but I mean a medium to positive connotation to
Whatever,
it.
that's the point. So these happen all the time. All too common mass shootings. This is the nation that we live in. It happens all the time. What do we want? How do we want it to happen? What fixes it? What are the extreme fixes, and what are the ones that are possible?
I mean, I don't even know where to start.
I mean, it's just because there isn't a solution to it. And but again,
There's not a simple solution. There are solutions to it, but no simple, acceptable.
Right. To me, the richest, most powerful nation in the fucking world that just raises depressed, suicidal kids is the fucking problem. These kids came out of school systems. How do you go 12 years in a school system run by the richest, most powerful country in the world and want to fucking kill yourself in these kind of numbers? How do we produce this? We produce this collectively. That's the fucking problem. We produce suicidal kids collectively. This is the collective. You want to know why I'm open to the conversation about fucking vouchers?
You can't point the finger at one thing, and that's what it all comes down to. You can't point
This collective,
that it's the gun manufacturers or it's the
I'm
advertisers
going to put it
for
on
those
schools.
gun
I'll put it on
manufacturers.
record right now. I'm going to blame it on schools. I'm going to blame it on the education system in this country. We're born and raised that we're going to be this great, awesome, rich, powerful thing. That's what we get told every fucking day. And the school puts that in us. And they say, yeah, go follow your dreams, chase your dreams and shit like that. And you get out of school and you get a big old smack of reality in the face. And you're looking 18 years old and you're looking around and you're like, my life sucks and it's going to suck for as long as I'm alive. I'm taking somebody with me now. That's the world we are creating with our school system, with our media, with our, both pop culture media as well as news media. That is what we are creating on a regular fucking basis. Suicidal kids that are so fucking mad they want to take people with them. That is the problem to me. And that is the problem that needs to be addressed. Yes, we'll still have shootings. Yes, we'll still have deaths. Yes, we'll still have gun issues. But the biggest change in numbers to me is hope. I mean, it's hope. Wanting to live and not being so angry with your life that you want to take somebody with you. That's the solution to me. Let's chase that number down. Let's figure out how to give people hope with their lives instead of going through 12 years of hell in school and then realizing that was all bullshit anyway. And now I'm just here and I'm stuck. Living with my fucking grandma, who's a total bitch. I'm going to go to Wendy's and hate everybody at Wendy's and be weird. I'm going to save up my Wendy's money. I'm going to buy a gun. I'm going to shoot my grandma. And then I don't know what I'm going to do.
I can't point fingers at the schools.
I mean,
if you look at the percentages, 99.9% of kids that have come out have not done this.
99.9% of Americans have not done this. What kind of fucking stat is that? Most people don't do this. It's not normal. Right. Isn't that the thing that you just went on the fucking...
Right.
Isn't that the whole definitional rabbit hole we just went down? This isn't normal.
Right.
This isn't what normal people do.
So you're blaming the schools for an exception.
Okay. What's a common denominator?
In what particular shooting?
I mean, what's a common denominator? In any of the school shootings, what's a common denominator?
I mean, like I said, the most recent thing I've heard was most of the school shootings have been the shooters have been people who have claimed to have been bullied in school.
So they were students in the schools, generally speaking. In the schools that they went and shot up?
Not necessarily. I don't know. I don't know if they specified
I'd be curious
back to a particular school.
I would be very curious to know that stat. I would be very curious to know the stat of how many of them were public school kids and how many were private school kids, because I bet you there's fucking zero private school kids. Maybe a couple. But probably pretty close to zero of the grand total of these kids, the school shooting specifically.
Yeah, because private school kids wouldn't do that.
I'm not saying they would or they wouldn't. I'm just guessing. Statistically, it's going to be an even smaller minority because there's a smaller minority of kids that are in private schools anyway.
True. I'll give you that.
But I'd be curious to know.
I don't think you can point it at the schools.
Okay. I'm trying to think of common factors here. And again, I agree that the gun's one of them.
I mean, I've got to point some fingers at parents, at friends and family around them.
For what? Failing to recognize and intervene. They raised the piece of shit.
Could be lack of connection.
They raised the piece of shit. How are they going to notice in the...
Right.
That's just it, though. I mean, it's like I agree. I agree. But isn't that part of the point of the schools? Isn't that the point of the schools, though? One of the things is the schools is a place where we get to touch.
What was the last major shooting before?
Sandy Hook?
No, that was like 2014. It's like last year where the parents were the Crumleys, where they're in court right now because they're getting. I think it's in Michigan.
Okay.
Where they were getting sued by the schools for the kid that went and shot up the school.
Okay.
But the parents ended up, whenever the parents were found, they were in a different city, apparently with like multiple cell phones, like hiding in a storage like unit or storage unit facility. And they apparently like didn't know anything about it or whatever. Because they had called, the parents had been in there that day right before it happened. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
I mean,
what school shooting I'm talking about?
Vaguely.
I can't remember how many.
Because it's not normal, but it's common. All too common.
Right.
They all bleed together.
Well, there's some, like, I guess, things that have come out in the court. I remember, like, whenever the parents were found, were, like, out of the city. But apparently they'd been there that morning and brought in by, like, the school counselor and had to sit down with the school principal. And they're like, hey, your kid is, we've found, like, notebooks on this. I don't remember exactly what all was going on, but they were like, hey, we found signs that your son is either unstable at this moment or something's going on. And they didn't take him out of the school that day, and I think it was later that day or like the next day that he ended up coming and shooting. I'm blanking on the specifics of Ethan Crumley, I think might have been his name.
I don't know.
His parents are on trial now because the school system's going after him for basically, I guess, like failure to kind of stop this. It's like, hey, we brought this to your attention. We asked you to take your child out of school, and you refused to either take him out of school, which I'm not sure how the school couldn't just be like, you need to take your son with you right now.
Yeah.
You need to go talk to someone. Your son's obviously in a crisis moment.
Yeah, because usually it's the school that wants to take that moment and be the intervention. Generally speaking, like the school reaches like a lot of times, and that's one of the complaints of some parents about the school system is they take on too much and they try to be the intervention point.
Right. And then that's one thought, kind of going back to like the teachers, of kind of like, hey, we should arm the teachers. It's like, how much more do we want to pile upon the expectations of teachers?
I mean, it's not. I don't see that. I think the question of the arm the teacher conversation is do they want to arm themselves? If they want to arm themselves, okay. I don't think it should be.
That's one thing I think the lady that I heard like interviewed later or earlier today was that Texas does allow that if they want to.
Right. I don't think it should be an obligation of your teaching license to have a carry permit and to have range time to be a teacher. I don't think that's fair. And I could even get behind the idea of if you want to, as a teacher, you're obligated to do X, Y, Z on an annual basis. Some range time, some gun safety classes, whatever. I could see that as an additional if you choose to.
Right. It's not something I agree with. I don't think we need to have armed teachers in school. I don't think we need to have a teacher with a loaded weapon inside. With as many school shootings as there are, you don't have students that know that there is a weapon with bullets inside this classroom, that classroom, that classroom, that classroom, or wherever.
So we're talking about
I think that adds to the possibilities
overtaking the teacher, stealing his gun, and shooting.
Very possibly, yes.
But we have armed SRO officers in the schools. Does that not concern you that we have an armed officer? That guy has a gun all the time. I'm going to take him out, take his gun.
Less so.
Why? Because he has a uniform on?
Because he has it on his side at all times. I don't think that teacher is walking around the classroom doing geography lessons strapped to their hip.
You've met Max, right? You know Max? You hung out with him?
Yeah.
He carries all the time.
Okay.
Do you know that?
Yeah.
Do you see that?
I assume that's all the time. No.
So ask him next time you see him how many times he doesn't have his gun on his person.
What is your point?
My point is most people that carry religiously, they don't set it on in a desk or on a table or put it in their glove box. It is on their person.
Okay.
Every moment. Until they get home and it's in their safe or it's on their bedside table. That's the only time they don't have it on them.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like that's a leap for my experience with people who like to carry is that when they carry. It's on their person.
Right.
They don't leave it.
But you also restricted what kind of clothing you can wear if you do want to carry. Everything is not concealable.
True. But people that carry regularly buy clothes specifically to carry in.
Okay.
I don't know how many teachers are wearing swimsuits or something that are incompatible with carrying. I don't understand. I'm sorry. I just don't understand what you're getting at there. It's just the fact that this teacher and that teacher has a gun on them physically, but you're okay with the police officer or the SRO that has it on them physically. Not only does the SRO have it on them physically, they have it on them externally and visibly.
Exactly.
So the fact that it's visible on them, which means I know where it is if I'm going to attack him and try to take it, as opposed to you're a teacher that carries. I know you carry, but I don't know where you put it. I don't know if it's in your pocket or if it's in your back or if you have a one of the shoulder straps that it goes under your arm. I don't know where it is on you. I see that the scenario that you're putting together. Yes, I see if a teacher leaves it on a fucking desk while he's talking to the class, that's a problem. If he puts it in a desk drawer that isn't locked, that's a problem. But if he has it on his person, concealed especially, that is less problematic to me than a resource officer that has it out in the open.
So if a teacher wants to carry, they need to be able to conceal it on them at all times.
Not necessarily. I don't agree that. I don't agree with the base of your argument.
If they shouldn't have it in their desk or whatever, the expectation is they will have it on them at all times.
Sure, whatever the standard is for the SRO, it should match. The school security has it on. I don't think my school security office takes it off the entire day that he's there.
Why don't they conceal carry?
I don't know, because they're supposed to look like cops.
They wouldn't look like cops if they concealed.
I don't know. Why don't they conceal carry? You tell me.
I'm asking you.
Because they're supposed to look like cops. Do cops conceal carry?
No.
That's why they don't conceal carry. They want to scare you. That's the point. They want to look scary.
They want to look scary.
They want you to see the gun. Yes. I think that's part of that is part of the uniform.
Yes, that is part of the deterrent.
Okay. So, but again, with the premise being that your concern is that if teacher A, B, and C carry and conceal, or don't conceal, but conceal specifically was what your point was. If they conceal and the kids know that teacher carries, they're going to overtake that teacher and steal their gun and shoot people. But the resource officer who doesn't conceal ever, they're not going to overtake them, and that's less problematic because you could see the gun. So fine, then the teachers don't get to conceal carry. They have to carry on their hip.
Who are the students spending more time with? The SRO or the teachers?
The teachers.
Okay. So that would increase the likelihood?
I think that would increase if you're a good teacher, that would increase your awareness of
if you're a good teacher and the students like you.
And that would increase the likelihood that you are aware of your students and how they act and stuff like that. And if some student came up to you all kind of weird, you'd be aware of that. Yeah. I think the teacher's more likely to have a better radar for something funky going down with his classroom, with his students, than an SRO that doesn't have as much interaction with the kids.
I agree with you on that. They should have a better rapport with them and knowing when someone's acting cagey or whatever.
Right. But I think the reality here of the argument, because how many school shooters have took a gun from every school shooter on record right now brought the gun with them, right?
Right.
So the argument of why we should arm the teachers is not to put more guns in the schools that other kids might get their hands on. It's so that when that kid or that parent that's fucking crazy comes on campus and starts shooting up the place, that we have people throughout the building who are armed and ready to defend themselves and their students. Like I don't understand why that's your automatic place to go in that conversation. That a student might steal it from the teacher to do it.
Yeah, that's just one part of it. I think it's more that you're adding that one more expectation or implied expectation.
Man, peer pressure. This episode is brought to you by peer pressure. If it's optional, if you want to carry, you can carry.
No, I mean, yeah, if you're optional, yeah.
People that carry, as maybe not as much in Tennessee anymore because we are a constitutional carry state.
Right.
But people that carry usually go through the process, and usually care about carrying, and usually care about buying clothes that are a little baggier so it covers up their conceal.
It's a big
And
assumption, but yes, go ahead.
And X, Y, and Z. How many? Okay.
How many people do I know that carry that don't give a fuck? A lot.
Okay. I still don't see why that still has no bearing on your issue with teachers carrying being and it's an accessible weapon to a student who wants to kill.
Man, I know many people that carry that laugh at some things that I've said are people like people that would open carry is fucking stupid. I know just as many people that open carry that are like, that's fucking stupid.
To conceal?
To open carry.
I get the argument that open carry is stupid. For a citizen, sure. I don't want somebody to know that I'm armed. I mean, I don't want the state to know that I bought one from the first place. But if I'm at the grocery store, if I happen to be in the Buffalo grocery store,
yeah,
and the guy walks in shooting up the place, I don't want to advertise the fact that I have a gun. I mean, that would put me up on the list of people he wants to shoot because he knows I'm armed. I would think. That would be my general assumption.
You go and shoot up a place, that's what you're looking for.
I don't.
That's your first target. I'm looking to see if anybody's open carrying. You have no worry about people that are concealed carrying.
There is record.
Your first thing is to shoot people that are open carrying.
There is record of school shootings where these kids go. The first place they go is they go shoot the security officer at the school, and then they go shoot up the place because they go to the security officer because he knows he's got a gun.
Okay,
that is on record. I would assume as well that the guy in Buffalo, the security guy in Buffalo that got shot, was that he was the guy in the security uniform, so he assumed he had a gun. That was one of the first people he shot. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm going to guess that's true. If you were going into a place and you know there are people with guns, you shoot the people with guns first.
I don't think he was the first person shot.
Okay. I don't know that. Like I said, I didn't know that for a fact. But I would say if you were planning an attack on
I'll bet you $5 he wasn't.
All right. I'll take that bet. I'm good at losing $5 bets to you.
That's the only reason I wanted to bet. I'm like, I'm on a streak.
But I mean,
the odds are in my favor out of what?
Well, and you can lose, and it's my money you're giving back to me anyway.
That's
but
true.
What
if I already gave
if you're going, if you were going, okay, so let's try the illustration this way. If you were going to rob a bank,
right,
and you go and you case the place and you look around and you're seeing who's where, looking at the staff, seeing what it is, you go and pretend to do your thing. First thing you do is you figure out who the security guy is. But you don't think that would be a normal...
You're given a pretty weighted scenario in your favor. Going into a bank where...
Okay, so...
You
fine.
Have an armed guard. You already cased it, so you already know that they've got a security guard that is armed that stands over there. Yes, if you're casing the place and you're looking at dangers... and you're looking to possibly kill someone or at least subdue them.
Okay, so
yes,
so
security
fine.
guard will be the first person that
fine.
you go
You go
after.
to the bank. You go to the bank without casing the place, and you see the guy with the uniform on. I would say that's one of the first. That's one of the highest people you pay attention to.
I
if
agree.
you're going to rob a bank.
Yeah.
Even if you don't go in there and you don't case the place and you don't do any of that, you go into the bank and you say, "Security guy, keep an eye on you. Don't call anybody. Keep that gun on your hip, or you're dead."
Right.
Like every movie does it that way. Whether or not that makes it real at all, but
you go in a grocery store. How many people are you trying to look at to see if they're even open carrying, or even possibly carrying, or even if they're moving?
You're probably not particularly looking for it, but if I walk in the grocery store and there's a guy at the register and he's checking out at the U-scan and I see a gun on his hip, he's the first one I shoot, or at least I make sure I know where he is when I'm moving through before I start shooting. Because I know he has a gun on him, and it's right there, clear as day.
So open carrying makes you less safe.
Yes. I don't believe that visibly seeing the gun is the deterrent that you think it is, I guess is the way to put it.
Do you think you would be able to get to your weapon easier if you open carried versus concealed carry?
You would get to your weapon more quickly if you open carry.
Okay. Would that increase your odds of safety? Of protecting yourself.
Okay, so in your scenario, you're assuming that the assailant has already got the gun in my face.
I'm saying that the point of carrying is to protect yourself. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I hear shooting on the other side of the store and I've got my gun on my hip, I've got plenty of time to get it out. Sure.
Open carrying makes you more of a target, but increases your ability of protecting yourself. But that outweighs the fact that you're more of a target?
The other way. I would say that your becoming a target is more of a deterrent tactically, is more of a negative tactically than the speed of you pulling your weapon. Yes, I would think that tactically speaking, you are better off.
What kind of deterrent?
The gun being on the outside
has deterred the shooter from shooting you.
In tactically speaking, the visible deterrent of open carry is less valuable.
Okay. Than
the speed that open carry gives you. Tactically speaking, because again, let's say,
because I still go back to the scenario of someone's already drawn on you. No matter if you're open carry, concealed carry, you cannot get to your weapon
right
faster than they can pull the trigger.
But if you're concealed carrying and they've already drawn on you,
right,
they think you're less of a threat than you actually are, because they don't know that you have a gun. They might assume as much, but that's doubtful. They're looking at you and you're standing there with your hands up. And okay, so another example, guy comes in to rob the bank, and this doesn't work right because you're not allowed to carry in a bank anyway, but guy comes in to rob the bank, everybody hands up or whatever, and you and me and Max are standing in a line with our hands up. And for whatever reason, Max decided to open carry that day, and his pistol's hanging off his hip. I've got my concealed on me, you got nothing, right?
All right.
So the assailant's looking at the three of us. Who do you think he's paying a hell of a lot more attention to of the three of us?
The person that's open carrying.
Right. And he's a giant fat ass. But the bigger guy with the gun that you can see is the guys you're paying more attention to. Tactically speaking, I am in the best position of the three of us to get out of that situation. Because I'm carrying, but I'm not top priority to the assailant. That's the thought process. And I agree with the premise. It makes sense. I don't know why we got down that rabbit hole, but again, I think this Texas thing, I think the Buffalo thing, I think every single one of them is a tragedy. I think mass shooting is I don't like the definition of 4, but I think the amount of guns and stuff and the amount of shootings we have in this country is a problem. But I don't necessarily. I think the guns are a consequence of this society. That's who we are as people. That is part of America. Like it or not. I think that's part of us. So we need to accept that fact and work on the solutions that actually can make a difference. And I think the solutions that can make a difference is hope. I think it's education. I think it's some sort of cohesive we that we lack in this nation. Hard. I think that's the biggest issue. Probably number 1A is there is no we.
Well, we have the most guns. We don't have the most guns per capita. So I don't.
We have more guns than we have people.
I'm not comfortable with just saying like we're America of guns. That's what we're known for. That's like, what we are. That's who we are.
What was the question I asked earlier?
I don't recall.
Is there any fucking possible way that we're going to get all the guns out of the United States? Is there any way that there's going to be a buyback and people give them up? Are we going to give our guns away as Americans? All of them?
Some, but not all, no.
Okay. So if you can't do all of them, it's not worth taking them back. It's not going to fix it. Gun show loopholes aren't going to fix it. Red flag laws aren't going to fix it. They may help a little bit in the margins. You may have less suicides and stuff like that are successful because less people get guns in emotionally poor situations and shit like that. 2-day waiting periods, stuff like that. It'll help in the margins. It won't stop mass shootings like this. And unless we're going to go down the rabbit hole of trying to take all our guns back.
Is there a possibility of it stopping one of them?
What?
Is it a possibility of stopping one of them?
The margin, the common sense gun law?
Any of what you've just talked about.
I mean, that's kind of what I list off.
Yeah.
That was what everybody considers common sense gun law.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, sure. Is there a possibility that the world slows down in its rotation around the sun? Sure. I mean, the possibility it's an inarguable fact. You can't argue that fact. Yes, absolutely. There's a possibility, so we should do it. There's a possibility of a lot of things.
I think there's a good chance that it would.
But I don't think that's. I just thought that's not a. It's just not. I don't know what the proper AC. You'd know the right words for this or whatever. That's not there's. It's a false negative. Whatever. I don't know what to call it. Like it's just not like. Yeah. Like
it's not a guarantee.
Well, it's the iRobot movie. It's the iRobot movie played out. If you set the rules up in a certain way, then eventually the common conclusion comes to then we are going to be put in little boxes in our houses because then we don't want people to die. Is there a possibility that if we didn't drive our cars, that less people would die? Absolutely. Not a possibility, a fact. So is absolute 100%? This is the same thing that we have with the pandemic argument. Is absolute 100% our safety as a mass, whatever you want to call it, the number one item on the list of things to do? Is that all that matters? Is that people live longer?
Because I have no idea what you're asking.
Because if we didn't go out in public, we wouldn't get sick as much. So we shouldn't go out in public. That has a possibility of saving hundreds of thousands of lives. Because I won't bring the flu home to my grandmother.
You're giving an extreme example.
No, it's not.
It is.
But that's the.
If we never go outside, it's not an extreme example.
But would it not?
Yes,
would or would it not?
Yes, it
would or would it not possibly save lives?
Yes,
would it possibly save lives?
Yes, on a communicable.
So then, should we do it because we need to save lives? That was your statement.
Again, you're going to an extreme example of the entire American society not going outside and doing anything.
But
where you were talking about.
But you were talking about, is it possible that
waiting period, putting restrictions on assault weapons, or the other quote unquote?
Okay, so let me ask you. Let me ask.
Is that as extreme as expecting Americans to just not go outside and see each other?
Let me ask
how do you say that these are parallel?
Then let's ask the extreme the other way. If we never went out in public, if we never got around each other, would that stop people from dying?
From COVID?
No, just dying from illness, period, from communicable diseases. If we just lived in our houses and never saw public, would that stop people dying from diseases?
If we lived alone, by ourselves, without any contact with anyone else.
Is it possible?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Is it possible that we stop dying from diseases?
From communicable, transmittable diseases.
I disagree.
Yes.
I disagree. I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's possible that
How do you transmit diseases to another person when you're in no contact with another person?
I don't know, but I don't think it's possible.
How do you contract? How do you think it's possible to contract a disease that you catch from other people that has no way of you catching it on your own by yourself? How do you die from a disease like that?
How do you think it's possible to prove that a 2-day waiting period on guns is going to take this out right now? It's going to take maybe one out in the future. It's not possible to prove that. It's not possible to prove my communicable disease ridiculous extreme thing. It's not possible. We don't know that. There is no way to prove that ideal. It's a false positive. Again, I don't know what the fucking technical argument is.
No, increasing the waiting period isn't a 100% guarantee. But I think it increases the likelihood of those rash decisions of someone being in an emotional heightened state of being like,
I get what you're saying. I 100%
really mad. I need to go buy a gun.
100%.
And you can give someone a few $100s, and they're like, here you go.
On the right, and
right
again,
then and there.
I said that from the get-go. On the margins, if somebody's going to kill themselves or kill their wife, yes, that is the type of person where a 2-day waiting thing would actually have an effective wit. That was my point on the margins. That's not going to stop a mass shooting.
Right.
A mass shooter is planning it. Every single one that we've seen in our lifetimes has been. It's not a spur of the moment. Just all of a sudden, I'm going to go out and kill a bunch of fucking people today. I'm going to go buy the gun right now and go shoot people.
I agree. Yes, most of them.
That was the point I was getting at. Is that yes, the guy who's pissed off at his wife goes to the gun store, comes back and shoots his wife. 2-day waiting period will stop that. Yes, it's not a possibility. It's a fact. I agree with that. But when you asked if it's possible,
you just agree with me.
When you asked if it was possible, you were what I heard at least was you were asking: is it possible that this is that those common sense gun laws that I was listing off were going to stop a mass shooting? Right. They're not.
You thought it was less likely than not.
I don't think
I disagree that I think it's more likely than not.
You were saying it is. You were asking me if it is possible, and then that's why I threw my stupid extreme example out because it is impossible to answer that. You can't answer that. We don't know. We don't know how certain diseases get into certain people. It is certainly possible that I could be on my back porch and pick up the flu, some crazy fucking bird piss or bird flu variation or something stupid. It's possible. People are going to die from diseases whether they're in contact with each other or not. That's the point.
Sorry, I should have specified. Human-to-human transmission without contact with another human is virtually impossible.
Anyway, the point is that I'll agree in principle on the common sense gun law stuff, but it doesn't stop this. And that's what I've been trying to ask. This is not the same thing.
I agree. Can you stop gun violence? Absolutely no.
But which gun violence do we care about then? Only mass shootings or all gun violence? Which one? I mean, because really you were talking about we want to beat the drum on this one because it's so ridiculous that this has become normal. And again, I use the stupid fucking normal word. But we want to beat this drum because we want people to pay attention. This is a big deal. We need to do something about it. Taking the guns out is not the one that's going to fix this one. Again, I'll agree. 2-day waiting period, red flag law, shit like that. That will take some of the margin, the suicide, the killing the spouse kind of shit, the domestics. That'll take some of those out. 100%. And if that's something that's important to the American people, I'll deal with it. Won't be happy about it, but I'll deal with it. But it's not going to fix this one. Doesn't stop this one.
You're not going to die on your hill with your tank?
I can't buy my tank anyway. I'm already in a pragmatic having to deal with what I got in front of me anyway.
Gotcha.
My point is it's not going to stop this one. And if this one is the one that's important, if these ones are the ones that we really want to do something about, then I think I'm right.
I mean, yes, we emphasize the mass shootings more than individual murders. Just from the simple prioritization.
Okay, so if the goal, if the only goal is to get gun deaths down, if that's the only goal, then yes, these common sense laws will have an effect on that. If that's the only goal. But it will not stop mass shootings. It just won't.
Right. I mean, a lot of laws that are made are in hopes of stopping further. Does it guarantee it? No.
I'm not trying to guarantee anything. I'm just saying it
right.
won't.
And like I said, I think it increases the odds.
I don't think it's going to make a significantly statistical...
You think that they wouldn't do anything, but...
It's not going to take a statistical numerical difference against the mass shooting. On the margins, again, I'm clarify the term, on the margins, talking about spousal domestics turning shootings, talking about suicides, those will come down, yes.
So what do you think would bring down the possibility of mass shootings?
Just to get to some level of, I don't live a shit life. To figure out how to get us as a community
Take guns out of the equation. And just bring it down to the emotional societal level. I think that's all that makes a real difference. And I don't think it's stupid. I don't think it's mental health. People are crazy when to go kill people. We need to stop them. We need to figure out how to make less crazy people. Because we're making crazy people. The country that we live in is creating crazy people. The numbers are up of crazy people. Is that what's changed? What's changed is making people crazier. We have more crazy fucking people. Obviously. That's what we've been talking about the whole show. Crazy fucking people shooting kids. Crazy people that are 18 and don't give a shit about the rest of their fucking life. Crazy people that think that Jews are sneaking in blacks and Mexicans to replace the whites. Crazy fucking people are more and more prevalent. Why? Because these are the ones that are doing the terrible fucking things. And again, I don't really have a problem with suicide. If you want to kill yourself, kill yourself. That sucks. I'm sorry. But if you want to, it's not. Who am I to say you have to live? But that was a pointless little stab. But my point in all of this is nothing to do. What? That was fucked up. Sorry.
People that people should be forced to live by the state.
I'm not talking about
crime to kill yourself.
I'm not talking about assisted suicide. That's a totally different action.
Okay, fine. Anyway, we don't need to start.
It was more like, it's not what you said. It was kind of like how you said
it. I apologize. That was not important. It was not needed for any of this, and I don't need to take it on another tangent. But I really think that some glimmer of hope, something that people can look forward to, something that people think they can actually live some sort of quasi-American dream, whatever their version is. The American dream's dead. Really, I'm scared to death for my kids when they get to adult age. You know, it's like, what are they going to do? What are they going to do for work? How are they going to afford a house? You know, the wealthiest person that I know personally can't buy a house. What the fuck? How are my kids? My kids aren't going to be on the same level of wealth as he is. They might be. They could be doctors or something like that. Who knows? They have all sorts. They have all the potential in the world. They can be anything they want to be when they grow up.
Yeah.
You know, but you know. Truly, the wealthiest person that I know personally can't afford a house. He can afford a house. That's a little bit of a thing.
Okay.
He refuses to buy a house because he's fucking bougie and bullshit. But it's still a stretch. It's still an issue.
It's like any person that wants to not just buy a house, but buy the house that he wants, and not just settle just to buy something because that's the one that's available.
Well, I mean, but that is
how happy are you going to be when we talk about being happy and being able to buy a house? How happy would you be to buy a house that you are then miserable?
Well, but it's, again, that's a societal, governmental, political issue that's at play that's put him in the position where he can't find a house inside the budget that he wants that's going to fill the numbers that he wants. Some of that, I think, personally, is realistically off the table. I just think it is for the situation. But I understand that the situation that we're in is of governmental, political, societal making. We are where we are from decades of political decisions, both nationally and locally. We are. We don't make anything in this country anymore.
I mean, you can't blame the 2008 housing crisis on politics.
Absolutely, you can. Okay, maybe. Okay, let me take it back. Maybe you can't.
What?
Maybe you can't. I think you can realistically if you actually go and break it down. But you can certainly blame
on
you can certainly blame the housing issue or
policies, but fucking financial institutions putting out they call high risk loans essentially.
You don't think? Okay,
that's government.
Yeah, absolutely. Government. The banks are one of the highest regulated industries in the nation, and they got away with it. Absolutely, that's policy. That's financial policy by presidents. That's congressional policy and interstate commerce clause and all sorts of shit. Absolutely. That is all. That is all stuff that they did legally. It was within the realm. It was within the law what they were doing, and anybody who had any real sense about them saw it and went, "This is fucked up," and they kept doing it.
No, and many of those that were in the know actively put bets against it, knowing that would fail.
Right. Didn't do anything to stop it. Didn't do anything to fix it. The government didn't step in and try to stop it before it crashed. Even though they were alerted to it by people that knew, they let it go. And then they bailed them out, and the CEOs bought new houses and whatever the fuck they did with their money because they got their bonuses. But certainly the housing issue we're in right now and the banking situation we're in right now as far as loans and mortgages and all that kind of shit is absolute policy. It's absolutely financial policy. It's Treasury, Fed, all that stuff at work is part of the reason why we're in the housing situation we're in right now. Personally, perfectly locally, all that kind of part of it, yeah, sure, we have a separate issue. I mean, how many people are moving to Tennessee from a New York or a California or an Ohio? How many people are moving to Tennessee to get out of these other places that are having issues? Politically driven issues. Maybe not politically driven, governmentally driven issues, not politically. Taxes of their state, rules and regulations in their state that we don't have here that are running here to get the government that we have here because they're sick of the one they have there. That is absolutely policy, government, politics.
I feel like you're saying it's the government's rules on one hand that caused issues, and now it's the government's rules that why people are trying to move away from it to get away from government rules. That's what's causing the issue.
Everything that we live in right now, everything, whether it's minimum wage conversation.
The government oversight has caused issues in another area, so the lack of government oversight possibly in our area,
sure, fine,
has driven more people to it.
To super simplify my point, a completely inept government is how we got to where we are. Yes. Whether it's too much or too little, it's just terrible at what it does. They're no good at it, for the most part. And that is how we got where we are. Whether that's federal government at large or whether that's individual state governments.
You're right. It's the government's fault.
What is it? How did we get to this state? How did we get to the state that we're in right now? If it's not,
as far as housing,
as far as everything, as far as how depressing life is. That's what my point is. My point is you have an 18-year-old that doesn't care and wants to take some people with him. How is it?
Yeah, you're right. Let's simplify it. It's just the government's fault.
I'm not going to.
They're the exact reason why that happened. If the parents of the children that were killed should file lawsuits against the government because it's their fault. They should have stopped this years ago by piss poor policies. They've created this. Is that what you're saying? I know that's exaggerated.
To pull an AC, at least 51%. Yeah. Of the problems we're in, at least 51 of those percent are government made.
I think you're grasping at straws and just trying to point fingers.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. My brain just broke a little bit.
I mean, I know with terrible things like this, we want to find someone to blame. We want to find that bad wolf that's the cause of everything.
Then fine, you're right. Let's throw our hands up and just fucking deal with it.
I'm not saying throw our hands up and deal with it.
I'm telling you.
I'm saying you're trying to simplify and say that it's just the government.
You're trying to simplify and say just take the guns away and it'll stop.
I'm not saying it'll stop.
There's a possibility there'll be less. I'm sorry, that's a better word.
Yes, I believe that if you take assault weapons away, reinstate the assault weapons ban.
Well, I believe that
that would decrease the likelihood of it happening. Will it stop it? No.
Okay, well, I believe that if the general lower class of American citizens, who tend to be the ones that are doing these kind of things with their kids, had any hope for the future, we would have less of these. Would it stop them? No. But we have less? Yeah, I think that's true. So maybe we can put our two little games together and we can have a great world tomorrow. Yeah, we're long as fuck.
Yeah.
It's fine.
How do you expect the government to instill hope among the world and just make everything sunny and bright again?
I don't really care what they do with the world.
If you're going to put blame, give me some examples of what they could have been doing better that would have fixed this. If the government is the answer, what have they done wrong specifically that has caused this?
Taxes, like just painfully overinflated, misused taxes. That'd be a big start, I guess. That'd be the first. You know, what's the average lower class, middle lower class is 15 to 20% income tax federally. Depending on where you live, you've got a 10% sales tax here. You've got a 2.5% to 5% property tax in the state of Tennessee, or in Knox County at least. Other states, you have more property tax on top of that, and maybe less sales tax and stuff like that. All going to infrastructure that doesn't work very well, schools that don't teach our kids very well, foreign policy that puts $40 billion into Ukraine. We can talk about that, but we're already too long. I don't know. There's a quick, small rant of little things that we could do better. Taxes. Taxes would be a start. Let people have more of their money to spend on the things that they want to spend them on.
That's going to make people
maybe have better trade policy where it's puts any value on the U.S. labor force so that we can actually make something so people can have jobs that are worthwhile and they can enjoy their lives because they work for something. Middle class that can make a middle class income, an actual middle class income from basic work. That would be a good start. Minimum wage isn't going to fix that. It's just not. Bump up minimum wage to $30 an hour. It's not going to change it. It's just going to shift everything up.
I mean, outside of what the government can, which hasn't really done, instilling a basic minimum wage. Well, I guess they have federally at $7.25. Maybe they've raised it up to $8 now. I have no idea. Outside of that, are you advocating for the government telling businesses how much they should pay their employees and how much money they should give their employees and how they should spend their money and whether they should or should not take their business overseas to then bring business back to America?
I could accept the idea.
I thought you were kind of against some of that.
I could accept the idea that the government could potentially limit or put some rules on international action. Sure, that I can do with it. No, I am not okay with the government telling me how much I should pay my employees. I'm not okay with the government requiring me to offer benefits to my employees. I'm not okay with most of those.
And once, I guess, semi-broad thing, but semi kind of focused of trying to bring more people into middle wage.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, we got to end this, but go ahead. Finish the thing, and we'll go.
And to minimum wage, how can the government bring more people into that middle income?
The government could take less of their money.
Be more average and happier.
Government can start taking less of our general money, whether it's the business's money or the individuals. That'd be a start. Employment tax is significant on the employee or employer side. Costs a lot of money to employ people, a lot more than it is what you actually pay them. I mean, I spend, let's say you have a $15 minimum wage. If we ever got there or whatever, you have a $15 minimum wage on our employee. That costs the employer closer to $20. Rowdy says goodnight, everybody. I think that's a good place to stop.
place.
because we can't go 5 hours. So anyway, good night, everybody. Love you.
Bye.
Woo! Almost in agreement at gmail.com. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Rowdy's barking at my neighbor's dog because my neighbor's dog's a dick. One of my staffers is texting me stuff. Just got real loud, real late. See, this is what happens when we go long. Sorry we went long, everybody. Almost agreement at .com. Check out the Voter Guide 22. I got some more interviews coming up this week. Like I said, program note, we are shifting to recording on Tuesdays, which will give us a Wednesday release date. So be on the lookout for an early release next week. So anyway, almost in agreement, everybody. Have a great night.